welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious times DCU Daily. We are back, and I am ready to rip a new one to the clowns over at DC. Because, man, like, how many times do I have to say this? It's not that hard to make a good Batman movie. Even when you try to fail, it still comes out well. You know, Batman and Robin is still fun to watch, but like they could have figured it out. Like, why do we? I bet like next year we're gonna find out it's 2028, and then 2029, and then Matt Reeves is gonna move on to something else, and Andy Muschietti will no longer be directing movies for Warner Brothers. We will get into that because that is of course the big news of the day. Then of course we have 3 movie reviews today. I'm like LeBron James. We're not gonna talk about just one movie, not 2 movies, but 3 movies. Well, actually, we're gonna talk about 4 movies because we have to look ahead to Wallace and Gromit, which might be the last one in the franchise. So we'll get into that, and of course, beyond, we had to talk about the MCU. We have to talk about other DCU stuff. There was some new Fantastic Four promo art put out that we were gonna get into as well. Just came out, so we'll get into that as well as the idea that. Is Avengers Doomsday a complete betrayal for everything that Endgame sort of did to send off RDJ and Chris Evans into the great beyond, whether it was to the past or the afterlife? We'll talk about that. And to do that and so much more, we gotta hit the intro. Oh, hello. Something wrong with that picture there. Hi. Well, we have. Okay, I'm gonna need to like hold back the anger at the whole Batman stuff for a little bit because we have to talk about a couple of movies before we get to it. But hey, hi.
We're talking about practice.
We're talking
about Batman.
We're not the game. We're talking about practice. We're not the game. We're talking about practice. Okay, fuck it.
Right.
Liz, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you? I'm not. I am also upset, but I am not in the rage-induced rant mode that you are. I mean, who knows? Once I get talking about Baby Girl, it's another story. But I'm okay.
I mean, it's so bad. I had to change the graphic. Justice for Batman. And like, what the fuck, Matt Reeves? What the fuck? Like Christopher Nolan made, what was it, Inception.
He built this in a cave.
Christopher Nolan made the movie in a cave with a pile of scraps and Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy, but like he did it with IMAX cameras. But then he made another Batman movie after with more IMAX cameras, and he did it all. He did 2 Batman movies and Inception in 4 years. In 4 years, and Matt Reeves can't figure out one Batman movie in 5. I don't get it. I don't get it. Fire that man off every other project he's supposedly an executive producer on, so he can focus stuff on the Batman too.
A good Batman show if that's the case. The Cape Crusaders sucked.
Oh God! All right. Well, John, how are you doing today?
I'm not in rage mode. I'm just laughing that like we have something on par with Jurassic League at this point because I've been on an island about ranting, and we might get 2 solid rants this episode between Nicole Kidman's discount 50 Shades of Grey and Dan being pissed about Batman. So I'm just cool. Like let's get some rants in here. I'm stoked for that.
Yeah,
I'm in a new desk chair. I'm way more comfortable now.
Manos Time saying that he made the Prestige Manos because he did Batman Begins, then he did Prestige. I'm talking about Christopher Nolan. He then did the Prestige, then he came back and made the greatest superhero movie of all time, The Dark Knight, and then he made Inception, one of the greatest sci-fi movies, probably one of the top 50 movies ever made, period. And then he went back and he decided to give us. What a lovely, lovely voice! I love The Dark Knight Rises. It did give us
the worst death scene of all time, but it's flawed.
It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. You came back to die with your city. No, I came back to stop you. I mean, like I love The Dark Knight Rises, and I also love the Batman. But unfortunately, it looks like we ain't getting a sequel anytime soon. And before I completely lose it, we should just get onto the news because we will then get. I have to save this for the actual rant because this is the pre-rant.
Yeah, just
So
bottle
let's
it up.
Maybe just start jotting down your thoughts so it's
just
cohesive,
jotting.
so
You know
it's
what? Like
cohesive.
I will
Rather
do
than just
that.
blind rage.
I've got a
Maybe
notepad right
organize your
here.
thoughts.
Yeah. I'm gonna look for a pen, but you know what? Let's. Oh, here you go.
Here's a pen. I got a pen right here. Here.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let's hit the news, shall we?
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always the number 2.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
Robert
You're
Downey.
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the.
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
Give
me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
All right. Well, I have managed to calm myself down in that intermission there. So
For
let's,
now.
for now, you know, it's like it's triggering, man. It's so triggering. But anyway, before I go down that rabbit hole, let's go down a different rabbit hole that a lot of the audiences all around the world apparently did because they thought that Mufasa is a better movie than Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Whatever.
Not true.
Fools.
Not true.
Well, I mean, hey,
Morons.
people vote with their dollars or pounds or euros or whatever, you know, whichever currency
like,
they have.
All right.
But
Yeah, I'm
you know,
irresponsible with my money
we
too.
should've-
So what?
We should have nuked France when we had the chance. Fuck them.
it looks like I'm not the only one who's gonna get canceled on today's show. But hey, Mufasa ruled the post-Christmas box office.
Yeah,
as you see
surprising
on Variety.
no one. Whatever.
I mean, Nosferatu made a good amount, and we will talk about Nosferatu a little bit later. But here's another article in Deadline which kind of goes into a bit more detail. What the heck? Hide all those articles. John, you mentioned this before we started the show. It's like the international, running total for The Lion King.
Yes.
I think is outgrossing the entire total of Sonic the Hedgehog, right?
Yeah, because apparently Europeans don't know good movies anymore. So like it's like, bro, like Europe has like made some of like the greatest films of all time. Hell, even Asia, even Australia. But yeah, they're giving all their money to fucking Mufasa. Guys, what happened? Did your balls drop off in the last year?
See,
A lot of Lin-Manuel fans.
Why you
apparently.
have these get-togethers, these little or whatever he said it was during the middle of the day.
Thank you, Caleb. Exactly.
But I mean, okay, Liz, I want to get your reaction on this. Are you surprised that Mufasa like made such a comeback after the opening? Because in the opening weekend,
Unfortunately,
Sonic
no.
dominated, and now Mufasa is sort of like getting the upper hand.
No, unfortunately, no, because it's school break, it's winter break, it's holiday break. Parents are bringing their kids, and it's got the as long as it has the Disney label ahead of it, people are going to go. They see a movie like Sonic and they're like, it's kind of violent. They're fighting. There's weapons. There's lasers. Why don't we just do this? It's a wholesome movie. It's for, for the moms and not to
Yeah,
not
so
to shit on the
wholesome.
feminine, not to shit on women, but it's for men and women. So it's for the little girls and the little boys, whatever the fuck. Fucking Sonic is so goddamn good. It's not fair. But whatever. It's because
fair.
it's Disney, and Disney will as long as Disney keeps releasing films around the holidays, they're going to continue to rake in the money. That's just how it goes. But
That is
again,
how it goes.
I implore you, parents, save your hard-earned dollars. Watch the fucker on streaming. It'll be available like in a week, probably on streaming. Watch it then. Please go take your children to see Sonic 3.
Not according to Liz.
So wonderful. What?
For real though, do you think that Mufasa would
Yeah,
be
that's
better?
a good question.
No,
from
it would have
Anna,
been
yeah.
like, well, I can't. Okay,
I think
here's
it would
the
have been. It would have been the
I
same.
can't judge
It would
it
have been the
because
same.
I haven't seen it. I can't.
No,
judge
it would have. It would have been
so-
the same. The plot is a reach. The songs are mediocre at best.
I just know that like
It-
Scar becomes
It would have been
evil
the
because
no.
he's a
It
simp.
would have been the
That's-
same. It would have been the same.
I think it's
listen,
not. So,
I'll say Blue Ivy was good in it. Antonio Banderas always delivers, fantastic. But
Speaking of,
what a waste of time, in my opinion. But
I
again,
will.
but everybody that's seeing it says they love it because they're looking
Yeah.
at it through their they're seeing their kids are happy, and that's what fucking matters at the end of the day. So that's fine. I applaud it for that.
It's just
That's
like-
why it's making all this money. But for me, it's a pass.
it's just sad to see because it's like,
Well, again, look at Moana
kids
2.
should have a higher bar. That's all.
Mediocre 2 is what we got. Look at Moana raked in all that money. So it's not a surprise at all.
It's just like kids should
so
have a higher
disappointing.
bar of entertainment, and that's
I
the
agree.
fact that we're just like that. Parents like, oh, I'm gonna stick my kid in front of the TV for anything, and it's like, all right, can we not do that? Can we like actually like this is literally your next generation that you're trying to grow.
Yeah.
It's like,
Caleb was making
why
some
are you
good
just
points in the
settling
chat.
for garbage to just sit in front of like fucking Cocomelon and all that shit? Well, that's a different argument.
Yeah.
But even then, it's just like, oh, Moana 2. Whoa, my fucking kid liked it. Like, you give them something like Iron Giant. Watch that. It's like goated. It's like, go watch that. Go watch fucking, I don't know, just anything. Like, it's just anything better than this crap. But it's like Illumination makes billions. Disney still makes billions for mediocre slop. It's like, what are we doing? What are you doing?
In the long
What
run,
are we doing? What are you showing me?
in the long run, this is not going to be like a Disney classic, like The Lion King is. Kids aren't going to ask to watch it over and over again at home. If anything, they're going to want to watch.
I think a parent might, take a bullet to their head.
I'm just saying, but again, as all parents care about is we're getting out of the house for a couple of hours. My kids are entertained the entire time. So for that, I totally understand it. But again, you have Sonic 3 as an option. You'll get the same result, actually probably better. And then you will have to watch it over and over again at home because it is so elite. But that's a wonderful problem to have. So I don't know. I'm just so disappointed with it that, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look, the one positive here is when you look at the box office for this weekend. I mean, right now it's Friday, right? So we're heading into this weekend, but so far the numbers are positive for like Nosferatu, also over the Christmas period. Not only did Nosferatu do well, but Baby Girl and especially A Complete Unknown made a decent amount of money. So we know that the Christmas time is a time of the year where there's lots of money to go around and plenty of movies come out in that period because of that. So right now we're smack dab in the middle of the holiday season, and it seems like even though Mufasa is making a lot of money and Sonic the Hedgehog obviously is as well, there's still plenty of room for those other smaller movies, and maybe not in the star power sense, but it's a budget sense, and they're not these big tentpoles with A Complete Unknown, Baby Girl, and Nosferatu. They're still making money, so I think that's still a positive. But hey, yeah, it is definitely. If you're looking for something that I mean, look, they did tread some new ground, so I can't really say that Mufasa is a total, because it's not like doing what the CGI one from a few years ago did, which was a shot-for-shot remake. So it's not, there's some creativity, but obviously we reviewed it last week. You guys can go check that out. It's not.
But again,
the best
it might
movie.
as well have been a shot for shot because they so obviously kept referring back to the Lion King, like it was gonna surprise anybody. We're talking about this is a pre, you know what I mean? Like, of course there's going to be a thing with Pride Rock. Of course there's going to be how Scar gets his scar. Like, that's all very obvious shit, but they went for they totally went like it was like in your fucking face, shoved down your throat, as if we didn't know that was coming up later on in the Lion King. So please, tell me you're a cash grab without telling me you're a cash grab. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, Disney is in the business of making money, or at least according to, which maybe a Captain Obvious kind of a statement, but that's something that there's one of the consultants on this Pixar show. We talked about this, I think, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Briefly, so we didn't get canceled. So,
But there's an Inside Out spinoff on Disney Plus, and so it's a TV series. They didn't decide to turn it into another movie like they did with Moana 2, but it's a series with mixed results. Hey, Moana 2 is making $600 million, so the decision worked out. But Inside Out 2, of course, came out this year. The spinoff is on Disney Plus. We talked about it last time. The story was that there was a trans storyline, in the show, and essentially Disney sort of just chopped it out of the show. Like they changed the character to be cisgender instead of being trans, and then today we're hearing from essentially one of the consultants on the episode and what they had to say about it, because the actress Chanel Stewart, who voiced that character, who was meant to be trans, they basically, it's like they changed the identity of the character to being cisgender, which it becomes problematic in the sense that, hey, you hired somebody to do the work, you obviously put in a lot of time and effort and creative energy and just a lot of creative capital, let's call it, into the show. It just feels like the decision was obvious. We get it. We talked about it last time. The idea that Disney is in the business of making money, and if they feel like it's gonna harm their ability to have the series be a success because of that one thing, they will make that's what drove their decision. But I want to read this quick comment here from Sarah Litigich, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's a former Pixar assistant editor who consulted on the episode, the particular episode of the show we're talking about. She told the Hollywood Reporter, saying, "It hardly surprised me, but it devastated me. For a long time, Disney has not been in the business of making great content. They have been in the business of making great profits. Even as far back as 2 years ago, when I was at Pixar, we had a meeting with then CEO Bob Chapek. Of course, he got fired not too long after, because he sucked at his job. And they were clear with us that they see animation as a conservative medium. So, I mean, I feel like given that that this is happening even today, and a whole episode of Win or Lose, you see that entire trans storyline taken out, and then obviously if you are Chanel, who voiced that character, you can imagine how it makes, if you were in that position, it's almost as if they told you hey, we don't really want to talk about your identity. We don't want to the lack of, this is the thing where, John, you mentioned it last time, the problem here is obviously with the fact that they took the whole storyline out and changed and what this character is about in the episode itself. But what's also problematic is why put it in there in the first place?
Right.
They should, to then have it be taken out, and then that becomes it's just all around bad PR. But at the same, but
very
obviously,
terrible PR.
at its core, it's the wrong decision. Yeah. But if the Disney higher ups were gonna frown upon this anyway, then there should have been more better guidance up front, or they should have said, okay, well, you can't do that, but you can do this, and then that way you wouldn't have that.
What they're doing is they're picking their battles based on the current political climate. That's 100% what they're doing. Because later on in the article, they also talk about how there was another project that was focusing very much on environmental issues. And they said, that's not going to play well either. People are getting sick and tired of talking about climate change. Now, however, if you remember from my first review of Mufasa, I said there was a speech at the end that was so fucking woke, again, trying to shove shit down your throat. That's because we are a divided country right now. We're divided around the world, quite frankly. And the speech that Mufasa has at the end was all about togetherness, how nothing can survive if we don't rely on one another, if we don't reach out to each other and help each other. And we're all a pride, we're all one pride. And the whole time I am gagging on how badly they're shoving this fucking message down our throats. But again, it's based on what's going on in the world. So right now, parents don't want to talk about don't want their kids to have to talk about trans issues just yet. They don't want to have to focus on climate change and how horrible we are every time we go to McDonald's and we're not using reusable plastic, whatever the shit. So that's what it is. If people were more leaning towards that stuff, and if the politicians gave a shit, we would start having these storylines again if they were deemed acceptable. But as of right now, none of that is. So that's what they're doing. It's a cash grab at the end of the day, but they're hedging their bets. Yes, it would be a nice idea, but you know what? Politically, not the time. Maybe 10 years from now, maybe 5 years ago. But right now, it's not going to play.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, look, figure drawing, asking a couple of questions, how
it's
is
not
that
that it's woke, but again, the way they presented it is the problem. It was so
spoon feeding to the audience.
Yes, it was. It was so obvious that this was the big, broad, giant message. Listen, I'm as liberal as they freaking come. Okay, you don't have to. I would be fine with a trans storyline in a kids show. Whatever. But again, sitting there in the theater, I was like, well, this is propaganda. What the fuck? There's a time and a place for these messages. And they can't seem to figure out their balance. That's the problem.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. Please.
What I did want to say in regards to that was exactly what I said before. It's like it just seems like, and as I was saying, and Liz kind of put it more eloquently, I'm gonna say it more bluntly. I think what they're trying to do is like cater to the people that, and because I was saying, like I said this last week. I'm like, why say this at all? Because they're trying to get a certain audience back, because all the people that are not all of them, but a lot of people that are complaining about Disney are more right-leaning. And so they think that if they say this stuff, they're going to get that audience back, when they're smarter than that. And they're like, okay, just because you take out this one thing, it's like, okay, cool. That's great. You've also like destroyed every franchise I've loved. I'm not going to come back to this company that I hate now because you removed this one storyline or two storylines that I don't know what the climate change thing was, but
well, at this point, I think they're hoping that the press
happening.
is gonna draw people to the show just to say, oh, well, we wanted to see what they were gonna do, we wanted to see how they were gonna handle it, we wanted to see.
I
how
guess
they were
that's
gonna
also
pivot.
like,
but
yeah,
no
like,
one knew what they were going for in the first place anyway. So it's,
I mean,
it's all kind of goofy to me.
Right. I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. What I'll just add to that is, look, here's the thing. It's always very, it's not tricky is not the right word. I think it's just
It's a fine line.
It's not even a fun. No, I think what I'm trying to get at is, it's just a game that it's just, you're asking for trouble. Okay, let's say, put it this way. You're asking for trouble, Disney, if you're going to try to play to the political climate of the moment. And the reason for that is these TV shows and movies are not, made for the here and the now. You're not printing a newspaper where this is a front page for this Friday, and then there will be a new headline and a new front page on a Monday.
Right.
These TV shows and movies live on those streaming services, or on physical media if you buy it, or like in a movie theater you go to see it. They stay in the cultural zeitgeist for a long time. You should never, as a corporation, be. I mean, especially as an entertainment. This is something. Look, as a corporation, I get it. Like, that you want to, not be a foul of, like, it's as a corporation, you make those business decisions. But when you're a company that makes content, especially for kids and stuff, I'm like, it's playing to the political climate of the here and the now is just asking for trouble. It's like, you gotta pick a side, in the sense that when I say pick a side, I don't mean like, okay, like pick a side, you're either conservative or liberal. No, I'm not talking about that at all. What I'm saying is, either do it and then do it really well, or like make that decision up front and don't let that get out there. And then clearly they tried to get ahead of it, but obviously, like, the people who were involved in the making of the show were not happy with the decision to have that character be changed and the storyline removed after the show was made. So to me, what that says is, like, somewhere along the way, the creatives behind the show made these decisions, and that got through the whatever a level of approval that it needed to get to. And then when it finally got to, I don't know who, maybe at like corporate Walt Disney outside of Pixar, they were like, wait, let's put on the brakes here. We do not want this to be in there.
Well, and the most disgusting thing is they're sharing those decisions, those behind the scene things, because it still draws attention to this project. Whether because we all know there's no such thing as bad publicity. So they're actually like, I mean, look, yeah, we're just gonna pass on this storyline, but we're gonna make sure you know about it so that it brings attention to this project.
But this is the thing about. By the way, Antonio in the chat. Hello, Antonio. You seem to have joined at a controversial time. But like
that's a fair. That's also a fair. Like, quick skirting in. That's a fair point, because it's like, I literally have never heard of this fucking thing until you brought the article up.
Well, but here's the thing, though. This isn't a Disney press release, right? It's the people who were hurt by this decision because they worked on the show, and then their work is being changed for the sake of, like Disney making a decision.
But again, when we talked about it the last time too, they shouldn't be surprised at all, because when you're talking about a certain age group and a certain demographic, there are just certain topics that I'm sorry, right now where we are in the world, you can't touch it. Because like they are they going to next have a storyline that's got sex ed involved? You know what I'm saying? Like, there are certain things, and listen, the trans community, I'm not saying we're sexualizing it by any means, but my point is, there is just certain pieces of subject matter that you do not address at certain age groups, because again, you're gonna be accused of trying to shove woke shit down people's throats.
Grooming.
And how dare you? It's not your place.
Grooming, quote unquote.
Well, but that's also why Disney doesn't touch religion. You know what I mean? Like there are just certain things
Liz,
you stay away from.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. What I will say to that, to add to it, is essentially like what figure drawing's saying. I think they should have
100%.
figured this out in the early, pre-production,
Completely
and made those
agree.
decisions there, and made sure that this was like good to go, and this wasn't gonna get changed. Because now, ex Pixar staffer, talking about this has everything to do with the idea that they're obviously not happy with what happened, but and maybe the intent, like obviously they're expressing their displeasure with what happened, and as they should, because you
Right.
feel really bad for not only the voice actor,
Right.
but also just the fact that again, it's like their representation is being taken away. But if this was something that was addressed early in pre-production, this wouldn't be an issue. But
completely
I will
agree.
say, on principle, though, I think you guys will all agree there's nothing wrong with having like trans representation. I see where there's probably plenty of families out there who would be more than happy to have their kids watch that Win or Lose episode and have a trans character in there and a whole storyline,
I
and
mean,
be like,
I
we
made
want
that
you
argument.
to know that,
Yeah.
right?
I made
that's
that
part of
argument with Buzz Lightyear when somebody had made that comment to me. One of my coworkers
Yeah.
had made that comment about the lesbian kiss in Buzz Lightyear, and that's not their decision to make, and expose that to my children and da da da. But I said, okay, but aren't there children of same-sex couples that are completely not represented at all in all of these films that they love? Wouldn't it be nice for them to see their family represented on screen? So I completely get it, but to your point, absolutely. The fact that they greenlit it the entire way to the point that they actually wrote it, animated it, had it ready to go for a full episode, and then pulled the plug. Either do it and stand behind it and face the consequences regardless.
Yeah.
Because now they're getting negative press for it anyway. So
Exactly.
you can't win for trying.
It's a lose-lose situation now, because they tried to make those changes too late in the game. Like, I think we're all on the same page here. Like,
Right.
Either they should have just made the decision to commit to the storyline early, or not commit. Like, wherever the process, whoever said, oh no, you need to change this. I think it was too late in the process for that change to happen. So late in the game that they had brought in a voice actor who was a trans actress, so she was representing the character, and you weren't just it's somebody who can relate to what that character how they would feel in the show and the storyline that they were gonna feature. You'd make all those decisions ahead of time, because then you would have hired a different voice actor potentially, right? And then the storyline wouldn't be like, it's just like you said, like it's not to do with the principle of having representation and not having that trans representation. It's the idea of you put it in, then you take it out, and then it becomes a story, because obviously the people who worked on the show are going to be disgruntled about the fact that their work is like any creative. You work on a movie. I mean, David Ayer is still mad about the fact that they took the movie away from him and had a fucking trailer studio,
as he keeps reminding us every year. Yes,
which is, well, I mean, but rightfully, I mean, yes, he probably does that way too much, but rightfully so. He should be unhappy that his work was taken away from him. I get it that you are working for a company and they own the IP, but it's as a creative, it hurts when it's like you write something, you make a movie, and then somebody goes in and says, oh, we're gonna change this up, then it's no longer something that you worked on. It feels like somebody took that. Right now, having said that, like you said, Liz, there's certain parts of corporate realities that Disney is like, okay, we're gonna try to not go afoul of we're trying to appeal to the widest audience possible. I suppose.
Look what happened in Frozen when they cut to the family in the sauna, and everybody assumed that that there was a gay couple there. Like, you're talking, like, just like figure drawing, to her point, you're talking about literally 1 second, and people ran with it. And they were up in arms, and it was, and Disney had to come out and explain, no, you just saw the gentleman because he was so large, but the wife was right there. Like, we shouldn't have to explain who these little side characters are in a 1 second scene, but because people lose their ever-loving minds, and because it's in a children's film, we have to do this, and we have to baby these people, and it's terrible. It's ridiculous. I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, look, Disney is often in this situation, like you said, because they're making entertainment that is targeted primarily at younger audiences. But I personally, in my opinion, this is a story that shouldn't have happened, because they should have either addressed it in pre-production and made a decision, or if they then had a project on their hands where clearly that a trans actor voicing a trans character with the whole storyline in an episode, just stick with it. Just have the balls to
exactly
follow through on
they
what
have
you
enough
committed to.
money that it should
just,
make a difference.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like you said, the PR nightmare resulting from what's happened is a lot worse than if they had just stuck to their guns and said, okay, we did it, and this is the way it is. This is represent. And if you choose not to watch it, you choose not to watch it. It's not like, and in this particular case, it's not even like a big $150 million animated blockbuster from Pixar. It's a show on Disney Plus, so you could easily just scroll right past it and watch something else if you wanted to.
Exactly.
Much like if it was a movie, you could just go and watch a different movie. You don't have to watch it if it doesn't click with you. But it's certainly not something. I think sometimes with at corporate levels, companies get a little too, they're like, oh, no, we can't touch this at all. And that kind of like, corporate groupthink can really get in the way of sometimes what should be just simple decisions. And I think the simple decision should have been, if they had it and it was in the episode, don't cut it out so late. Because it felt like one of those moves where you're like, oh, and the movie is going to play in the Middle East, so they cut out an entire scene and whole character and change the name, and they're no longer like, it feels like that kind of censorship, except that you're seeing it in the US and like across the world, not just in like a particular region where there's sensitivities around those topics. So and that just obviously doesn't reflect well on Disney. Now now, of course, talking about Disney. Now, this wasn't a Disney problem because the first Deadpool movie was made under the purview of 20th Century Fox. But Tim Miller was recently talking about how he only got paid $225,000 for essentially 2 years' work on the film. And his agent told him, dude, you can make more in a Walking Dead episode. I just want to kind of quickly set the stage, Liz, before you can, have your take on this. By the way, I just realized you're wearing the Redwood shirt. Brilliant choice. I gotta find mine. I won't get into basically like Fiona, myself, and Liz, and there was a whole thing. We went out to the West Coast for a wedding. We went to the Redwoods. We got a bunch of cool, merchandise from the store. I gotta find mine, but I just noticed that Liz is wearing hers today. Looks good on you, Liz. Just wanted to like quickly compliment you there. But okay, so in here, he's talking about obviously how much he got paid, which like John is like, yeah, $225,000, like Crimea River, baby. But later on in this article, Liz,
he was the reason we got Ugly Sonic. So fuck Tim Miller.
Later on in this, Tim Miller, he was talking to Collider. He mentions that I feel like every time I walk down the aisle out there at the floor of CCXP and I see all these Deadpool figurines, I think they wouldn't be here if we hadn't made that film. And I feel uniquely fortunate that I could be a part of it. Then my second thought is, I wish my director deals had a piece of the merchandising so that I could get some of that money from all of that. I'm just going to quickly give my opinion on this first, Liz, and then you can go off on it.
Because he knows I'm loaded. He knows I'm loaded and ready to go.
Yes, because okay. Tim, you said in that same interview that this was, because this was your first movie as a director. You were like an action director. You were stunt choreographer. Like that's where you started, and that's why they hired you. But do you remember that Deadpool movie almost didn't happen because the studio Fox was like, we don't really care for this movie, and they didn't really support it. It was like how Warner Brothers treated the first Joker movie. They basically didn't even want to fund the whole thing, and Todd Phillips had to convince them so much. It was like that's the battle that Ryan Reynolds had for the first Deadpool. I feel like the whole reason that Tim Miller even got hired to do this movie as his first movie, as his directorial debut, was because he was, Fox didn't have any high expectations for it. They didn't think this thing was gonna work at all. No less make like almost $800 million and be probably not only the highest rated R movie at the box office when it came out, but also be so well rated that it just became like the best franchise they had of all the X-Men characters at the time. Nobody expected that to happen. So if Tim Miller went in, I bet you Tim Miller at the time was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get to direct a Deadpool movie. This is so amazing. I bet you he was just grateful enough at the time. I mean, they negotiated a deal and he got $225,000. That's fair for a movie of that scale at the time. The first Deadpool movie was made on a much smaller budget than most other superhero movies. The second and third movie have had huge raises in their budget, and it's like what they did with the Joker Folie à Deux, where they doubled the budget for the second movie because they were like, oh my god, this thing could make $1 billion potentially. So, and with that said, if Tim Miller had asked for a percentage or a cut of the merchandising or a back end points deal so that he could get some money from the profits of the movie itself, Fox executives would probably laughed in his face, and probably did laugh in his face if he did ask that question at the time, because they were like, ha ha ha, you're a first time director, you haven't actually done this before, we don't think this movie is going to make any money anyway, why should we give you all of this stuff? Like, he did not have any negotiating power at the time. This movie basically set him up as a director in Hollywood. So it's like, to look back at that, it's like hindsight is 20/20. But I'm like, you go back to when this movie was being made, none of that stuff would have actually, been, a lot. There's no way that the lawyers at Fox, even though they didn't believe in the movie, would have been like, oh yes, you can have a cut of the merchandise for Deadpool. Oh yes, you can get a percentage of the profits from the movie. For a first-time director, for a movie that Fox, if they had it their way, wouldn't have existed at all. So, I mean, to me, it's just...
You're not George Lucas.
Yeah. In certain situations, I would understand a director saying this, but like for Tim Miller, with the circumstances of that first Deadpool movie, it just doesn't make sense. It clearly doesn't make sense. I mean, like, go ahead, Liz. I'm sorry. It's just, to me...
one more thing before...
but exactly to your point. Go ahead, John.
One more thing before you have your rant. Also, by the way, Tim Miller's next movie was Terminator Dark Fate.
Ouch.
Just going to say that. And he was the head proponent as the guy who wanted Ugly Sonic. He was the one he's like, no, we have to make him look realistic to the overall movie, even though all of the VFX artists were like, this looks like dog shit. And he's like, no, it's got to be realistic. And then all the fans were like, this looks like dog shit. And he had to fucking scrape his feet and be like, well, fine, I guess we have to change it. And even though he didn't want to. So, Tim Miller, you could suck a dick. Anyway, Liz, what do you have to say?
Listen, every single one of us has applied for a job. When you apply for a job, you're given your base pay. This is what we're offering you. You then have a choice to either negotiate for yourself or to accept what they're giving you and move the fuck on with your life. Nobody gets a job at a supermarket expecting to be a manager a month later. Like, it's just ridiculous to me. The guy, even though, yes, it was his first time directing, he's worked in Hollywood before. He's worked in the entertainment industry before. He knows how shit works. You sit down, you have contract negotiations. You didn't expect this movie to do as well as it did. That's on you. The studio didn't expect the movie to do as well as it did. You still could have negotiated for yourself or walked away from the project altogether. So either be thankful that, yes, that gave you a leg up. It got you in the directing chair and people love the film and shut the fuck up about it. Or, negotiate for yourself better next time on your future projects. Maybe stop picking shitty projects, because that also seems to be a problem for you. But the whole thing, it's just so whiny and just, hindsight. Yeah, hindsight is 20/20. You made a bad call. Sucks to be you. Enjoy the bag you walked home with and shut up. It's so stupid to sit there. And that's the premise of an entire article is, oh, woe is me. You know what? Keanu Reeves, when The Matrix came around, no one knew shit about that film. No one knew. We expected it was going to be great. Keanu Reeves said, I want 20% of the royalties. And guess what? Guess where Keanu Reeves is now? You have to advocate for yourself, people, in all things, whether it's a freaking grocery store job, a gas station job, your first directing job. There is going to be a conversation about the expectations of payment, and you either like it and accept it, or you fight for yourself and take a chance. Those are your options. I don't want to hear any more about this. It's so stupid. What a baby. Me.
I mean, it's but
hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, fucking half the fucking country is living in poverty. Woe is me. Just eat a fucking dick, you loser. How about direct good movies? How about that?
Well, and he says too, he goes, yeah, it's $225, but over 2 years, that's not a whole lot. I don't make $225 in 2 years. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Right. I mean, it's also right. But Liz, even like I mentioned, it's not even a matter of that he should have asked for it. I think if he asked for it, Tim Miller would not have gotten any of those things.
But you never know. You missed 100% of the shots you don't take, Dan.
I get that. I completely get it. But I'm saying, for all we know, his agent did ask for some of those things. But like Fox probably said no to it because they were like, who are you, Sam fucking Raimi? Like, no. Like,
Right, but
this
again,
is
he
your
could have walked
first
away if
movie.
that was the case. But he
That
said,
w-
"Thank you very
this
much.
is
May I have another?" Yeah.
Well, that's because he was like, getting to direct a studio superhero movie at a time when superhero movies were and still are, quite frankly, the biggest genre in the game. So
Yeah.
it was the opportunity of a lifetime, and clearly the movie that put him on the map, because before that most of us didn't know the name Tim Miller. Yes, he probably was in a bunch of credits for movies as, you know, part of the stunt team and a stunt director, second unit director, but like he wasn't somebody who we thought, oh, you know, like we're gonna fan cast the Authority movie. Maybe Tim Miller should direct it. By the way, I'm not saying he should direct the Authority, but I'm saying, like, for example, like, or maybe like, you know, oh, you know, they're gonna make a Gambit movie. Maybe Tim Miller could direct it or something. I don't know. You
Well,
wouldn't
listen,
have thought
again,
about that.
we have
So,
all made decisions based on
yes.
expectations, and sometimes it works out for us, and sometimes it doesn't. You got to lick your wounds and move the fuck on.
Yeah. Yep. JB's like, I can make $225,000 last me to retirement.
God bless JB.
Oh man. Well, I mean, hey, it will take you far,
You can-
if you
and-
know how to spend it. But
Again, I don't
I'm
make it
just
in
gonna
2
say
years,
this.
so he's still
I'm ju-
better off. So shut up.
yeah.
I'm just gonna say this, and he got a chunk of change for being part of another big IP. So shut the fuck up. You worked with Jim Cameron. Eat a dick. I'm just gonna say this, to quote one of the greatest starship captains of all time: "You can commit no mistakes and still lose. That's not weakness. That's life. Sometimes you can do all the right things, do all the things meticulously, do all the perfect things, and it's never enough, and you still lose. But hey, in this case, to all us peasants, you fucking won because you almost made $250,000 fucking dollars in 2 years. I would fucking suck dick for that amount of money. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, really? You're gonna you managed to like get your directorial debut, work with some baller fucking names. You fucking made a movie. You fucking had a shit ton of fun making it, and you're still whining. It's like, bro, I wish I had $225 so I can make my own fucking movie, but I can't do that. I don't have the fucking money for that. So stop fucking whining, you bitch. Jesus Christ. It's no wonder you haven't directed anything in 5 years outside of a reshoot on fucking Borderlands, another garbage ass movie. So shut the fuck up. Maybe it's your fucking attitude. Maybe that's the reason why Ryan Reynolds didn't want your sorry ass back on Deadpool 2, you fucking loser. How about that? Just saying.
No, look, yes, I agree with you guys completely. I think ultimately, maybe the way that he said it was more like, oh, you know, I look at it and I do wish, kind of love. Like, he's sort of like, in hindsight, like I said, hindsight being 2020, he does wish that maybe he could have negotiated a better deal for himself. But like, even there, I'm sticking by the point that, hey, I don't care if his agent asked for all those things. I guarantee you that Fox would have said no, because they were like, no, you're a first-time director.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way we're like RDJ. I don't know what he did with Kevin Feige. He probably took him out for drinks and then, you know, spiked his drink that night and was like,
RGJ doesn't drink.
give me. Well, I'm just saying that he probably was like, you know, I'll take a ginger ale, but Kevin, would you like something? And then,
But again, they're
how about
taking
like
a
the
shot with him doing that too, though.
5% of the Avengers?
I mean, you know,
please
RDJ
sign
did
on
go
the
to Epstein's
line.
Island, so he probably knows how to drug people.
Ugh, shit.
No, but I'm just, it's rare. Like, even for Robert Downey Jr. to get the kind of deal that he had with the Avengers, that Avengers movie, he had 2 Iron Man movies that, you know, made the Iron Man character an A-list character in Marvel for the first time in its history, and basically $1 billion franchise by the time the first Avengers came out. There's a reason why RDJ could have was able to negotiate that for himself. Tim Miller was not in that same position. It's
But
like,
also,
you know,
RDJ's been in the industry for 20 years at that point too.
exactly.
Like, we
He
can't
has a
act like
resume.
he made a name for himself
And-
after 2 projects.
Yes, it's just you can't expect to get those kind of benefits, you know, on a deal. It's like Christopher Nolan probably like going. What was Christopher Nolan's first movie? The one with it's the guy who can't remember. Why am I forgetting Christopher Nolan's first movie? You guys know this.
You're talking about Memento?
Memento. The first big picture. Thank you. So it's like if Christopher Nolan went to Warner Brothers, was like, Memento, can I get a cut of the movie's theatrical profits? And then can I also get, and you know, a cut of any of the, not that Memento had much, you know, in the merchandising department, but imagine, just say Memento was like a superhero movie. Like, even somebody like that wouldn't have it because he does not at that time have a resume to back that up. it's all about negotiating, they would have said, well, prove it, maybe we'll think about it in the second movie. And that's what they probably did. And then, he wasn't involved in the second film, like John pointed out. So there you go. But hey, we got to now move on to talking about some movie reviews, guys, because that was the news and it was spicy, as you guys definitely noticed in the chat. Now we're going to get into something that's a whole different kind of spicy. Baby Girl. Did it get you all hot and bothered at the movie theater? Did you go see it? Let us know. Let us know in the chat, because Baby Girl came out this week. It's one of the 3 new movies at the Christmas box office. And it's a movie that, features, of course, Nicole Kidman, who, if you went to an AMC, you may or may not have seen her before the movie. And of course, she told you, if you did see the promo, that heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Except I don't know if the hearts were being broken or something else was being broken in the movie. The trailer didn't impress me. It just feels like it wasn't committing to the genre that it's a part of. It's trying to be a part of. If I want to put it correctly, and this is just me going purely off the trailer. Like you said, Liz, the chemistry seemingly wasn't there between the 2 leads. But you went to see the movie, so I want to get your opinion on this. What did you think about Baby Girl? Did you feel like this movie delivered on the premise, or was it largely a disappointment?
No. I saw it, so you guys didn't have to. Let's start with that. The premise, the actual premise of the film was Nicole Kidman's character, her name is Romy, which actually we don't even hear her name until like hour 2. It's really weird. Her character supposedly grew up in various communes and cults. So she sort of has some kind of trauma that's never really discussed. She does go to immersive therapy for it. But basically the entire premise of the film is she has been married to her husband, Antonio Banderas, for 19 years and has never once had an orgasm through sexual intercourse with him. She always then has to finish herself off, so to speak, after they're intimate. The actor Harris Dickinson comes in. He is an intern at her company where she is the CEO, and somehow kind of sees that she's a person that would prefer to be dominated in her life. She's kind of missing that control. They awkwardly just realize they have a connection somewhere along the line, and even though she knows it's inappropriate, she's still drawn to him for some reason. I can't understand it because he looks like shit in this film. Personally, I think he looks like a fucking rat boy. But they meet up, they start having an affair. Even he doesn't seem into it, because a lot of the time, like, he'll ask her to do something, but he'll be like, I mean, I guess if you want to get on all fours, like, give that a shot. Like, it's really very strange. And I think what they were trying to accomplish with this film was to highlight the fact that this is a problem that a lot of women have, and that we are trained our entire lives not to in any way make men feel like we're criticizing their performance in the bedroom. That's why we don't share these things. That's why we don't advocate for ourselves when it comes to sexual pleasure, and when it comes to what we desire, and when it comes to what we want from our partner in the bedroom. But it completely missed the mark. It barely really talked about it. At one point, she kind of has a breakdown when Antonio is trying to engage in sex with her, and says to him, like, I've never orgasmed with you in 19 years. I don't want you to touch me. But then, like, the next day she apologizes and she gets over it. It's very, very strange. And then, not to spoil it, but please don't fucking see this movie. So don't care. At the end, the intern that Harris plays, I don't even remember his fucking stupid name. He ends up dating Nicole's assistant, and Nicole's assistant kind of comes to her and says, hey, we need to talk about my promotion. You've been kind of skirting around the issue. I don't want you to turn into that type of woman that I can't look up to anymore. I know what's going on with you and my boyfriend. So you need to just stop seeing him, get your shit together, be the mentor that I've always looked up to, and straighten out your life. But then also, by the way, give me a promotion. So it's just really, it just ends with her helping the intern she's fucking get a job in Japan. She gives her assistant a promotion. She and Antonio Banderas work their shit out, and Bob's your uncle. It's not sexy in the slightest. Neither one of them look good. Their hair and makeup, for some reason, just was asleep on those days, phoned it in. I think Nicole looks absolutely terrible. She looks better in her AMC spots than she does in this fucking film. For some reason, she's probably going to get an Oscar for it. I couldn't explain it to you. The writing is terrible. The pacing is really off. The whole thing it's just 2 hours of cringe. And I could not explain to you I don't know why they kind of left the whole trauma and women have a hard time orgasming with their partners, regardless of how long they've been with them. I don't know why they just kind of left that on the table for people to figure out, like, that it could have been more compelling. They could have had sessions with her, like talking to her therapist, rather than just showing her in these various immersive therapy things that she was trying out. They could have had them go to couples counseling where she could work it out with Antonio, but they didn't do any of that. Instead, they tried to make it like a 50 Shades of Grey, and they fucked it so completely. It was very, very strange, and I don't understand any of it. And yes, absolutely, Kevin, she's going to get an Oscar nomination. She will, because it's about a woman empowering herself sexually, or whatever the fuck kind of spin they're trying to put on it. But please, I beg of you, do not go see this film. Like I said, there's nothing sexy about it. There's nothing that's going to, make you think differently aside from what I just explained to you, because it does have to be explained, because they certainly don't explain it in the film. It's just, whoo, what a fucking hot mess this piece of crap is. I can't even tell you. It's, oh my gosh. I knew I was going to hate it. Boy, did they meet my expectations. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's certainly a movie that, well, it's already got some awards buzz behind it, and yeah, like Caleb pointing out,
it had a good soundtrack. I'll give it that. The soundtrack was good. That's it.
I mean, look, 77% isn't exactly like glowingly positive, but 77% is still a pretty high number.
I will say Antonio was good. Antonio was the only good thing about the film, even though, he gets his heart broken at one point. But Antonio was the best part of the film. Nicole was Nicole. Harris, I could take her. He could have been replaced by literally any actor, honestly.
I mean, he didn't impress me particularly in the trailer. I just don't. I never felt the chemistry watching any of the promotional material for this.
Not at all.
Which again, I mean, for a movie like this is like, I mean, despite the fact that again the subject matter that they're talking about, like you said, they completely missed the point of what should have been the center focus of it all, and it seems like they had competing priorities of like, how do we get the audiences in the door versus what's really the core of the story.
Well, and what I don't understand as well, like, he played a model in another film, so like they are capable of making him look good. I didn't find him attractive. I didn't understand why she was attracted to him, and there was nothing drawing anyone to this movie. It completely missed the mark, in my opinion. But yes. It's going to get all the Oscars, and I'm going to have to blow my brains out this season. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I think a lot of the audiences probably agree with you, because the 54% Rotten Tomato score for the popcorn meter is probably indicative of the fact that, most people going to see this movie are not really enjoying it, and they're certainly not getting all hot and bothered.
Or maybe not in
the best of ways.
It's fucking them on both fronts. No pun intended. It's like you're getting all the fucking wine moms that read 50 Shades of Grey and fucking got themselves off to that, because they're not getting off to their husbands. And so they're like, they bought it and they did the thing, and then they went to go see the movie, brought their cucumbers with them, and were like, oh, this is so sexy, even though it's like not how BDSM works, by the way. And then on the other side, you have the people that are like, okay, this could be like what you were saying, Liz, like, okay, this is like, woman owning her sexuality, like finding out what she's into after this marriage, and could have been a good drama, but then they're like, oh no, it's actually trash. And so you're getting, it's like both fronts are just, it's like both are unhappy, because it's like, it's not sexy, but it's also not a well-made drama. So it's like, what are you doing?
Right. I mean, I didn't see Night Bitch. I know Night Bitch got really mediocre reviews, but I would imagine it's trying to say the same thing, and probably does a much better job, and certainly more entertaining than what we were given here.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a movie. It's out there, and if you guys are watching it,
it's gonna get the awards for some reason. Yeah.
It's I mean, hey, Nicole Kidman, heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Maybe you went to the theater and your heart was broken because you were like, this movie was supposed to be a lot better than it should have been. Let us know in the comments what you think about Baby Girl if you got a chance to see it, or if having seen this review now you're like, I'm probably gonna skip it. But while you're at it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and the notification bell. Now we're gonna move on to a different movie review. This one, I believe we're gonna probably get a bit more of a positive review for, because John went to see it, and Nosferatu is the latest from probably one of the best directors working in Hollywood today, Robert Eggers. So before I go any further, I have to bring in probably one of Robert Eggers' biggest fans. So now, that being said, John, you did go into the movie and gave it a fair shot. You weren't like, oh my God, I'm going to love it no matter what it is.
Right.
And with that said, did you enjoy the movie? Did you feel like this was the best effort from Robert Eggers so far? Or did you feel like this was a bit of, underwhelming compared to some of his other movies?
I think it is absolutely excellent. I thought it was a tremendous feat in filmmaking. I thought like every aspect, almost pretty much every aspect was near perfect. However, I do think it's his weakest film. However, considering the high bar that his filmography offers, that's not saying much, because The Witch was excellent, Lighthouse was excellent, Northman was excellent. Nosferatu, the first Eggers film that does not have "the" in the title, was another excellent film. Because pretty much everything in regards to this movie is tremendous. I get why some people don't like it, because there have been some mixed reviews in regards to like, oh, it wasn't the best. I can see that more so than some of his other films, but I still thought that this was a fantastic film, and it's really great to see. Like, I went to see this and my entire theater was pretty much packed. Like, it was packed to the brim. It was hard for me to find a seat. So that's really nice to see. Like, good horror, Robert Eggers, like word of mouth, because Northman was a bomb, unfortunately. So it was nice to see him getting some love, him getting some much needed positive reviews, and getting a fair bit of money, not a ton of money, but enough. But yeah, I'll get into specifics. I'll try my best not to spoil it, because usually I spoil it, but because it hasn't been out for very long, like about 2 days, I'll try my best not to talk, even though it's based on a book that's over 100 years old, and it's based on a adaptation of said book that's also over 100 years old. So it's a remake that's over almost 50 years old. So 45, I think it's actually 45 this year, actually, the Werner Herzog film. So this is it follows the story of Dracula, but with the flair of Nosferatu. Now, if you have not seen Nosferatu Symphony of the Night, that came out in 1922, it was one of the first real horror films. It was I think Cabinet of Dr. Caligari might have beaten it. I forget which one, but I'm pretty sure Nosferatu was like the first like real one. But it was it was an adaptation of Dracula that was not allowed to be, so they like changed names, hence why the names are different in this version, although Werner Herzog went back to the original names for his film. So it's an adaptation, but it still does its own thing. It doesn't totally, it is its own, like you can see like the bits and pieces that are, referencing the original novel. Like, Thomas Hutter was Jonathan Harker, Ellen Hutter was Mina Harker, Count Orlok is Dracula, and you have all the characters like that. And then you have, the period is kind of different. It's not in London, it's in Germany, and it's not in the late 18. I forget when. I don't know if the original novel was when the setting was during when the book came out, which was 1897. I don't know if it was like right before that, but it takes place in 1838. It's in Germany rather than London, but it's still, he goes to Transylvania. But yeah, so there's like a little bit of background. I'm sorry, I'm just a horror nerd, so I gotta get that out there. But I think this is a tremendous film. the acting was fantastic. Nicholas Hoult, our future Lex Luthor, is tremendous. I mean, he is one of the most, I would say he's officially an underrated talent, I would say. Um, because I feel like he doesn't get enough notoriety. Like people like kind of know his name, but I feel like he should have been like an A-lister by this point. He should have been, but I feel like he's like just went from C to B lister. Like I feel like he deserves, and he does like a good, like it's definitely like he's definitely like, he showcases the idea of being scared and stuck in this predicament and not really knowing what to do. Lily Rose Depp, a lot of people were worried about her, especially when they heard that Anya Taylor-Joy was supposed to play Ellen Hutter, because I think she had to leave due to scheduling conflicts. It might have been with Dune Part 2. It might have been with something else. I don't remember. But I think Nosferatu got delayed, so the scheduling conflicts didn't happen, but they went ahead with Lily Rose Depp anyway. But I thought she was really good in this. Like, I don't think she's a bad actor. I know people are going to scream and cry about nepotism, but I do think she's a very good actor. I know like she's been in garbage before, like Yoga Hosers and shit like that, but I think this proves that she is a good actress. I don't know if she's like one of the greatest of all time, but with what they did here, like it was sort of like that even balance of like submissive and scared to like by the end of the film kind of owning what she has become and like trying, like there's like this fucking tearing herself apart because she's under the guise of like Count Orlok, but she also tremendously loves her husband of Thomas Hutter. So there is that push and pull. I think her mannerisms are a little bit over exaggerated at some points, but I still thought she did a very, very good job. Aaron Taylor Johnson, our boy Craven, has redeemed himself from Craven, so that's good. He was great in this, especially after a certain point in the film towards the end. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but shows how good of an actor he is. I know we kind of forget that, but I was just watching. There's a certain scene I was like, whoa. And I was like, I can tell he put his all into this, and I could tell he put like a personal like touch on it. To the people that have seen the film, you might know what I'm talking about, but it was like, holy shit, this guy is good. Like, I know we know he's good, but it's like he's been in like mostly, I mean, the last fucking movie he did a couple weeks ago was the shitty Sonyverse movie. So it's like it's so interesting to see him go from that to like prestigious Robert Eggers production. So it's interesting. And that was wow. That was like, and I'm not saying like the rest of the movie he was bad or anything, but it was like a very different performance, but he was still really good. Emma Corrin, they play his wife, who is the Lucy character. I think Anna is her name here. She's very good, although she's not in the movie that much, comparatively, but there is a certain point in the film where I feel like where she becomes more noteworthy, and I thought that was really good. I thought she did a really good job there. Willem Dafoe as the Van Helsing character, I forget, he's Professor something. He's very good, but that's, you could just say that about look at that. That's just Willem Dafoe in a nutshell. Willem Dafoe is just he's one of the greatest actors who has ever lived. I would go as far as to say that and the thing is, but the unfortunate part, he doesn't get like Denzel Washington levels of like, yeah, nobody touch him. He's Denzel Washington. He's Willem Dafoe. He's like, he was Green Goblin, but it's like everything he's done, he has understood the assignment, as many of the kids say, and he just owns it. He's not in it as much, but like I feel like that works because it's like we're aching to like see more of him. And I like how his characterization here is very different from the Werner Herzog version, because that version, that Van Helsing, they go completely like 180 from like the book. where he's like, I think he's like a man of God and he's a non-believer in vampires. But here they make him like almost like an occult kind of, nutcase a little bit. And I really like, I mean, you could tell from this image, but like they kind of make him more into the occult. He's still a prestigious professor, but he's like kind of lost his mind and he's like got so into what he was studying that he just kind of went crazy. But you could like there's that even balance. Like this was like the craziest he went. But I think he doesn't go like as crazy. So I think that's definitely something. And Ralph Ineson plays the doc. I believe he's the Dr. Seward character. And I don't know who played Knock, the Renfield character. Both of them were excellent. Ralph Ineson has come back to, yes, I mean, he's amazing in everything, of course. I haven't seen Boondock Saints, but I know I've seen bits and pieces, and he's very good. Ralph Ineson, who was in The Witch, he was the father in The Witch, has come back to Robert Eggers' production, and he plays the Dr. Seward character. It's very good. He's more, great picks. But he's more conservative with his performance because the father in The Witch was so like, I don't want to say over the top, but he was like I am a man of God, like, so he was kind of like that. But here he was much more subdued. I would say subdued is a better word. And I really liked that. Now I've been building this up because Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok is holy fucking shit. This is one, not only his greatest performance, but one of the best horror performances I've seen in a long, long time. This was Oscar level. I guarantee it is Oscar levels of good. Oscar levels of great. He won't get nominated because it's a horror movie and they don't like horror movies, but in a perfect world, this would be nominated and he would win. And they take the Jonathan Demme approach with Silence of the Lambs, like Hannibal Lecter, where he's barely in the movie. And but like the fucking, like, no, I don't think he should be. Just the level of outreach and the level of control and puppet mastery he has on the people, the main characters in this movie, but on this town in Germany, the plague of rats, which was more of a subplot in the previous films, the previous iterations. It was not in the novel, but I love what they did. They kind of added that into a very small aspect of the original Nosferatu, and then Werner Herzog made it bigger. This one, they used the plague of rats almost, I don't want to say it as a substitution for Count Orlok, but like showcasing his power. And I loved that. I loved that they went with that. And of course, like the technical aspects, brilliant. The cinematography is just amazing. I mean, Jaron Blaschke, I think his name is, he's worked on every Robert Eggers project, I believe. And he's brilliant again. Once again, brilliant. And the editing was fantastic. The atmosphere, it took a while, but after a certain point, I'm like, wow, this is really fucking good. And I like how they included aspects that weren't in the previous two Nosferatu adaptations films, but they did bring it back. Like, there was, like, in the original novel, they have the band of gypsies. Well, I know they're called Romani, but here they're called gypsies because it was, way back when. There was the fight with the gypsies towards the end of the novel. Even though they don't play the same role here, they bring that aspect in. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Dan coming in like the Oscar when you start playing the fucking orchestra for the Oscar speech that goes on too long. I get it. I'll wrap this up as fast as I can. But it just. But the thing is, I'm not being spoilery, so that's why I'm not getting into it. But like, it's just such a wonderful film. I would say the only bad thing about this film is that the pacing is not good. That really got to me at points and kind of lowered it. That's why I think it's the weakest. It's like usually Robert Eggers is a master of his craft, and despite a slow pace, you're still like entranced with what's going on. There were a lot of points, mainly the first act and points of the second act, where I'm like, all right, we get it. Can you kind of move on type of thing? But outside of that, this was an amazing feat. It is another brilliant Robert Eggers film. I cannot wait to see what he has next, whether it's The Night, whether it's his Western, whether it's, his another gothic horror film, whatever he plans to do. The next 5 projects that he has in mind, the Labyrinth reboot apparently wasn't. I think he wants to do a Rasputin miniseries.
Oh, okay.
That'd be sick.
Because there have been rumors that he's going to do a Labyrinth reboot next, like the David Bowie film.
Yeah.
I didn't see that on
More bulges for Dan.
I didn't see that on the the Goblin King played by Timothée Chalamet. So I didn't see that on the upcoming. So I don't know if that's a thing or not. Fuck off, man. All right, if you can go fucking rage on Batman, I think I could go long. This is the most I'm going to talk on this fucking stream, by the way. But yeah, please, I know there was one person that said, I'm going to see this on Peacock. Please don't just fucking settle for Peacock. This deserves to be seen on a big screen. I know money is tight. You can just don't pay for the snacks. It's fine. Don't pay for snacks. Just fork over the $10 to $15. I swear to you, it's worth it.
Movie theaters
Please,
have discount days.
don't fucking give money to Disney. Give money to fucking movies like this. This was a passion project for Robert Eggers for years. Please give money to like more intriguing and well-made movies like this instead of Disney's slop. Please. We need more movies like this being made, because if this shit doesn't make money like The Northman didn't, then we're gonna get less amazing Robert Eggers movies, and we're gonna get more Tim Miller movies. Okay,
well,
so please.
And like I said in the chat, John, if you want to see a good Nicole Kidman film, go see The Northman.
Go watch The Northman. But yes, please go see Nosferatu. I tried my best to keep it spoiler free, just so you guys I know it says spoiler review down below. Guys, please go see this movie. I go see Sonic 3, go see this. Just don't see Baby Girl. Don't fucking see Lion King.
No.
See good movies. Now, I don't know how a Complete Unknown is. I didn't watch it. Liz took care of that. But just go see that. Like, go see that too. I beg of you, please. I don't care how, because people have been complaining about the mustache. Like, fuck, whatever. I don't give a shit. Please go see this movie. I'm begging you on my hands and knees. I'm not actually on my hands and knees, but please go see. I know it's slow, but please, I'm begging. Please go see this movie. Goddamn, guys, come on.
We got Retro Edits, Jim joining us, and Tony Reyes, of course, in the chat now as well. Wow, Retro, you're in your exam room and you saw the Batman 2. Yes, we're gonna talk about the Batman 2 in a second. Retro, but focus on your exam. Okay, if you need us to slide you some answers, though, please do type in the question in the chat.
Oh yeah,
we'll be happy to help. Not that we encourage that kind of behavior, but if you happen to, okay, well, I guess
there's nothing wrong with that. Get a leg up there, you can. It's okay.
Well, look, Nosferatu is getting great reviews from the critics. The people who went to see it love it, certainly a lot more than the people that went to see Baby Girl. So it's doing decently well at the box office for what it is. I know earlier we were talking about it. Let's see, where is it? That's no, that's the wrong article. Nosferatu, I think, made like $8 million, something like that.
Yeah, around there, like
7.6. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I mean, it's a good start, and for a movie like this, I mean, that's a great number, and hopefully with good word of mouth, which obviously, the Rotten Tomatoes scores show that a lot of people who saw it really liked it. So hopefully over time that score will climb, and then more people will check it out. And then if you don't get to see it in the movie theater, I'm sure it will eventually end up on streaming somewhere. But like John said, if you can, go see it in the movie theater near you. Robert Eggers is certainly one of the best names in the business right now, and whenever he makes something, it's so singularly unique and different, and his auteurship shows through like very few directors working today. So yeah, we hope that you enjoyed the review. Let us know in the comments if you are more likely to see the movie because of John's enthusiasm for it, or if you already saw it, then let us know what you thought about it in the comments. And then while you're at it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, because we are here each and every week talking about the movies. And we do a lot of movie reviews. Today on the show, we're doing like 3 of them. So speaking of which, let's move on to A Complete Unknown. A Complete Unknown is a movie that, well, Timothy Chalamet, or Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet.
He certainly is not a complete unknown. However, the character that he is playing in the movie, Bob Dylan, was once upon a time a complete unknown. And this movie got delayed over the course of, like the strikes and the pandemic and stuff. So it gave Timothy Chalamet a chance to work on his, vocalist skills and he kind of put that to the test in the movie itself. They had a big red carpet premiere for this. He's been doing a lot of press. And so far, it looks like, it's paying off because the movie's doing well at the box office. Again, it's not like a big blockbuster, but it's not meant to be. And for a biopic, it's doing well. It's not like a Bohemian Rhapsody level, popular, but for an A-lister, somebody who has already got quite a few big movies on his, what do you kind of want to call it, on his resume, that's a good word, on his resume for the year, with Dune, 2, and with Wonka getting another sequel, I'm sure, coming out soon. Gross. Timothy is busy enough as is, but doing a movie like this, it's not a big franchise film. It's a movie where he gets to kind of like show us just how good of an actor he is, and maybe even how good of a singer he is. So, and just overall how good of a performer he is. So my question to you, Liz, did Timothy blow you away with his performance in this movie, or were you disappointed by A Complete Unknown?
No, Timothy was great. He completely delivered like he always does. Say what you want about him, say what you want about who he dates in his personal life. But as an actor, the man knows what he's doing, and he does really put his all behind it. I have heard him speak in a lot of radio interviews about the project, and he certainly has passion for it. He was very fortunate or not, the production got delayed for quite some time. So over a 5-year span, not only did he learn Bob Dylan's mannerisms, tried to mimic the way he walked, the way he stood, the way he sat, the way he kind of, would sit and be, listening to when someone would speak to him. But he also worked on his voice, of course, but he also learned how to play guitar and harmonica because he wanted to be as authentic and as true as he possibly could be. Every single actor sang live. There was no, soundtrack. There was no, track overlay. A lot of people said, well, it sounds very much like Bob Dylan. So is it Timothy just mouthing to a Bob Dylan song? Absolutely not. It was him. As I explained to the guys prior to the show, there were certain times when he would be singing that it did very much sound like Timothy Chalamet singing a Bob Dylan song. So I don't know at what point in the filming, that they filmed those particular scenes, maybe in the beginning or maybe it just kind of fell off towards the end. I'm not sure about that. But I mean, especially right now, this generation doesn't know if at all anything about Bob Dylan aside from maybe hearing his name. And so I think it's a really good time for them to release the story. My theater was pretty packed. This is going to be a great one for our parents and our grandparents, certainly, just much like the SNL film was a couple months back. I highly recommend it. The pacing wasn't the best. The first and second act kind of dragged, but then the third act picked up really, really nicely. But just even going back to that time in the 1960s, I think we started in 1961. Folk music was the prevalent music at the time. Everybody would run and flock to folk festivals, to folk open mic nights, things like that. Pete Seeger was huge. Ed Norton played Pete Seeger. And that's actually where the film begins, is Pete Seeger was dragged into a court case because of what the content or the lyrics of one of his songs was very controversial. And you think about it now in 2024, when we've had songs like WAP, for example, and you're like, a folk musician was dragged into a court case. So already it kind of sets the tone to give you an idea of where the world was, but also reminds us that throughout history, music has always been one of the most important pieces of storytelling that we've ever experienced as a people, as a species. So important, in fact, that people will actually get sued over their songs. So it's a great film. Like I said, the third act really picks up because that's when Bob Dylan decides to go electric, and holy shit, the folk community can't handle it. Again, talk about silly controversies back then, but it's true. So it was just, I thought it was really great. It told a really good story. Bob Dylan's not exactly the nicest guy. He was kind of a dick. He kind of but all he cared about was making music. So when you look at it in that regard, it is what it is. But I thought all of the actors were great. Elle Fanning was in it as well. There's a lot of people that you'll recognize in the film. It's going to win all the awards. Certainly, I completely anticipate Timothy getting an Oscar. Very much along the lines of Walk the Line, how they swept that year. But I loved it. And quite frankly, you guys, if you don't know fuck all about Bob Dylan, or maybe like one or two of his songs, I recommend you go see this, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, my parents never played his stuff cover to cover. So I would hear a one-off song here or there, what have you. So I was familiar with most of his catalog, but I'm in the theater and I'm like, damn, he had bangers. Like he really, for what it was, he really was the pioneer of our time, and still the only musician to ever win a Nobel Prize for writing. So definitely check it out. I think everybody will appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and like you mentioned, like, hey, throughout history, we have seen, like, when Elvis started gyrating his hips on television for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Oh
The
my
world
goodness.
was like, oh no, like, oh no, we can't put that on TV. Even with Michael Jackson, like, people were like,
Now we have
what is he
Euphoria.
doing?
Now we have Euphoria on TV. Like high schoolers get fucked and snorted cocaine.
Exactly.
And Bob Dylan, of course, like, he had similar struggles, or like at least how people tried to censor his
Well, they
work,
kept
let's
trying to
call it
tell him
that.
what to do.
Exactly.
And he wasn't one that was going for that. Yeah.
Well, he was a trailblazer, a pioneer in his own way, much like we talked about Elvis, Michael Jackson, plenty of other examples out there throughout history. And like you said, it speaks to, again, the importance of music in our cultural zeitgeist, and how much it means to us, and how much we associate that with a means to express who we are as people. And in terms of, like, one of the biggest things that anybody, if you meet up with a stranger and you're playing 20 questions, I bet you one of the first 5 questions is like, what's your favorite song, or something like that. It always, it's a core part of like how we define ourselves is the music that we enjoy. And Bob Dylan, of course, is, I'm sure, a huge part of a lot of people's iconic the music that they keep on their shelves probably has a little bit of Bob Dylan in it.
I mean, he's released over 55 albums, so when you've got a span of work like that, it's just it's not something anybody can ignore, for sure.
Now, I just had I don't know if you guys know this, or maybe you guys know in the chat. Is Bob Dylan one of those artists who sold his entire collection off?
No, he has not, and he is still touring. He is still performing. He does a lot of stuff overseas, mainly right now. But no, he still, as far as I know, still has the rights to everything.
That's good. So he still has the rights to his catalog. Of course, you got also Monica Barbaro there, who was in Top Gun Maverick.
She was Joan Baez. She was excellent.
Yep, she was in that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie on Netflix, I believe, too, right? Like there was one where it's sort of like, well, they're both super spies, and it's basically, what was that movie in the 90s that Arnold's, and why am I forgetting this right now?
True Lies.
True Lies.
It was basically True Lies, except it was him and his daughter instead of
True Lies is so good.
But yes,
James Cameron.
James Cameron, one of the best action movies in the 90s. I mean, the way that third act goes down, you're fired. Anyway.
But like I said, the pacing wasn't the best. It was still, again, far superior to Baby Girl. Baby Girl felt like it was 4 hours long.
Probably better than Nosferatu too.
Well, and again, like I said, it does pick up in the third act as well.
Wise, just some bits here and there.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the Rotten Tomatoes score. 79%. Rotten Tomatoes. It's certified fresh. It's got 177 reviews, which is more than the other 2 movies we reviewed today, but between Nosferatu and Baby Girl. Not saying the number of reviews is a reflection of the popularity of the the but certainly as far as the promotions go, this movie they've been really just putting it out in front of people's faces a lot more, because A, it's a Bob Dylan biopic. B, it's Timothée Chalamet involved with it. He's one of the hottest names in the business. And then when you look at the popcorn meter, 96%. That's certified hot. Like, and that's a good number.
Yeah, it is very entertaining, and like I said, take your parents, take your grandparents. It'll if anything, it'll bring them back to their childhood, and I just think it was a great film. It really was, and it's gonna win all the awards for sure.
Yep. Well, they're getting the buzz, and I'm sure that he'll get nominated.
Hopefully more than Baby Girl, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes. Now, of course, if you guys enjoyed the movie, let us know in the chat what you thought about it. If you're in the comments down below not watching us live, then drop down below and give us your opinion on whether you enjoyed A Complete Unknown. If you haven't seen it, are you more excited to see it now that Liz has given it her, vote of approval to it and she enjoyed it? And of course, while you're at it, hit that like button and then hit that subscribe button. And then, of course, toggle the notification bell so you know when we go live with a new show. Right now, we're going to switch focus. Finally, we're going to move over from doing all the movie reviews. There's so many movies coming out in this Christmas week because every year there's a lot of movies out and we got to talk about all of them. Now, we're going to talk about the world of DC. And, man, I'm a little worried myself personally because I don't know how far I'll take it. But, we shall persevere. Speaking of which, welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. Today, we have to talk about Batman, or lack thereof, because as it turns out, it seems like no Batman for you, or me, or anybody, really. Justice for Batman is what I'm talking about. Justice for Batman, what is going on with you, Matt Reeves? How many years and how many idiots does it take to write a good Batman movie? I want to get your opinions on this first before I go off on it. But I'll start with you, John, because I'm sure you read the articles because you're the one who found it, sent it to me, and then I was like, what? Because we have been talking about it for weeks now. The idea that this Batman sequel, The Batman 2, is looking more and more like they potentially will move it again, because originally it was supposed to come out in 2025. Then it got moved to 2026. And it's not like they're moving it by a few months. They're moving this movie a year at a time. They moved it from October 2025 to October 2026. And lo and behold, John, now it's going to be coming out in October 2027. That's a good 2 years past the original release date. And that puts it pretty much a good 5.5 years, if I'm correct. Or 4.5 years, right? Because the first movie came out in spring 2022. So yeah, it's a 5.5 year gap. Robert Pattinson is gonna be in his 40s. I mean,
when
at that
he's
point,
the young trying to get a handle.
I mean, you might as well should have just kept Ben Affleck. Who cares if he's 55 at that point?
He's gonna have arthritis.
I don't
by
get
the
it.
time they start filming.
Before I really go off, John, what are your thoughts on this? You found this article. Of course, there's other news about what the movies that Warner Brothers moved around in addition to the Batman 2. But let's just focus on the Batman 2 for now. What does this tell you about where this movie is right now?
That this movie ain't gonna fucking come out. That's what I'm thinking. I remember I was watching a stream of a couple of my friends were talking about the Batman part 2. And one of them was like, oh, yeah, this movie is never coming out. They're not going to want to have two Batman on screen together, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, I was kind of defending, but the Penguin just came out and they still want to go full steam ahead. But at this point, I'm just like, no, this shit's never going to fucking come out. We're never going to get a sequel to this goddamn movie. I think there's more drama behind the scenes than we're seeing. I think Matt Reeves is I think under this new tutelage of James Gunn, I don't think he's into it, even though James Gunn says that he's into it.
I mean, James Gunn hasn't even seen a first draft of the script for the sequel, apparently, even though Matt Reeves said a few months ago that he's done.
At this point, just hand it to the other writer, because there's the other writer who recently just did Terminator 0, which is apparently really good. So just have him fucking write it and then have Matt Reeves direct it, because at this point it's just fucking ridiculous. I understand, fucking not James Gunn. Sorry, Stephen King has written 15 novels from when originally we talked about this to now. It's bro, it's not why are you just if you don't want to do this movie, then don't fucking do the movie. Don't fucking cock tease us oh, it's gonna get delayed, but it gets delayed again, and then it gets delayed again. Just don't do the fucking movie. I don't mind it being a one-off at this point. Okay, we got Penguin, we got Batman. All right, cool, that's fine. We have the Batman duology. Cool, great, end it there. I don't mind it ending, because at this point I'm just fucking done. I didn't really love this movie all that much anyway. Yeah, the Penguin is great, but at the end of the day, I'm just I couldn't fucking care less now at this point. I'm really not caring. I'm not gonna fucking believe this movie is gonna. am genuinely gonna say this is not coming out. They're gonna keep delaying it, It'll be fucking 2040
But
when we get the movie, and
yeah.
fucking Batman and Joker are gonna fucking ride around on scooters at this point and around the fucking Arkham
Mermaid Man and
Geriatricon.
Barnacle Boy to the rescue.
Yeah, like that's what it's gonna fucking be at this point, and I'm just fucking sick of it. Like I'm at a point where I'm like, I just don't care anymore. Like the movie was fine, the show was great, but like it's like I like you're delaying it so much that you have fans that are pissed or fans that are just like, well, I'm not going to fucking give a shit anymore. And probably when the movie comes out, it's probably going to be a pile of shit now because it's like they're spending so much time on this. Matt Reeves, it's either he has writer's block or is overthinking every possible detail. But it's just like, at this point, just give us the fucking movie. Like, I don't know, just like, I'd rather just have like, just throw a fucking shitty movie out in theaters at this point. As Dan said, it's like, even when it's bad, it's good. Like, yeah, but nice to see you, Batman. Like, we get that.
The Iceman
that.
cometh. Come on.
We'll get that.
Not
like,
that
it's
hard.
just like at this point, I'm just like, I don't fucking care. Like, I really don't. I'm excited for Superman. I'm excited for Supergirl, and I'm excited for Clayface. Those are the ones that are coming out, and I'm just like, I'm excited for those. I'm excited for what James Gunn has to offer, as well as Creature Commando Season 2 and Peacemaker Season 2. And hell, even fucking Lanterns at this point, I'm like, all right, at least we're actually seem to be fucking getting that.
Yeah.
So, it's just like, it's ridiculous.
It is. Now, Liz, I'm gonna point us back to the article here where we got the news, essentially, and it says here the most prolific move is that Matt Reeves' The Batman sequel is heading from October 2nd, 2026 to October 1st, 2027. Again, pretty much another full year out. Originally, I think it was meant to be like October 4th, 2025 or something. It was basically like in October 2025. Now it went to then it went to 2026, which happened I think earlier this year. And we're like, okay, 1 year, he needs more time. The writer's strike, get it. Now it's a whole another year, and we still don't. I mean, I think it was as recently as a couple of weeks ago, where James Gunn said he still hasn't seen the first draft for this movie's script. So. Yeah. It just becomes like, a little weird, like what is happening. But I wanted you to address something here in the article. They say production isn't scheduled to get started until late summer of 2025, and they're calling it a VFX heavy sequel, which we were like, this is meant to be very realistic. But when you watch the Batman, there is a lot of VFX work in that movie. It looks really good, which is why people don't think it's VFX heavy. But a fall 2026 release, it feels like if they were going to start filming in late summer 2025, that means they're probably filming till early 2026, which would mean they would have less than a year to get it through post-production. So in that respect, I understand. But my question also to you is, how did it get to the point where we're not even starting to film this thing until, late 2026? Because he's been working, Matt Reeves has been sitting on this for a few years now. Where's the delay? What happened? I mean, what do you think, Liz?
Well, we had talked about this before. I mean, there was a lot of speculation. Were they going to start filming in spring? Were they going to start filming in summer? It's just I'm not going to say it's alarming. I'm not going to go that crazy with it. It's disappointing for sure. I mean, literally no one else has brought up a project as far back as 2027. No one else. Like we've talked about 2025, we talked about 2026, but to officially turn around and say 2027, like John said, now I'm thinking to myself, is it going to end up realistically being 2028 at this point? Because it just bums me out. Like I definitely feel like we're getting Penguin season 2 before we're ever getting this second film. But I also kind of feel sad for Matt Reeves, because I guarantee you he's getting a ton of pressure. Somebody said in our chat that Twitter is going off on him, or X, however you want, whatever we're calling it these days, that he's getting a lot of hate from people. He's really being trolled and harassed. And I have a feeling, just like John said, he's feeling the tremendous pressure and the weight. He's probably seriously writer's blocked, if not just overthinking it and trying to make some perfection out of something that, none of us are asking of that. We just want a continuation of this film that we really enjoyed the first time around. So I'm actually really sad for Matt Reeves. I feel really bad for him, because I'm sure he really wants to give us a decent film and try to live up to like the first one, but it's not looking great, when they keep pushing things back like this. It's a disappointment.
I mean, look, here's the thing. I can. By the way, there's a statement from James Gunn on Threads where he kind of clarifies from his perspective the reasoning for why this is being delayed, and of course, him being the co-CEO of DC Studios, his word is basically facts. So we will get into that. But before we get into any of that, it's just the optics of the whole thing that bothers me. Like it's because we've talked about how the first movie came out in 2022. Remind me again, John. I believe from the moment we heard that Matt Reeves was getting hired for the Batman movie, and then he said, "Okay, Ben Affleck's no longer gonna be Batman, and now I'm going to make my own thing." I think it was like
karma.
Karma.
Fuck you, Matt Reeves. I'm just kidding.
It took like maybe 2-3 years or something like that, but we get it. It's the first movie he was gonna cast a new Batman. He had a whole new vision. We were at a nebulous time in the world of Warner Brothers because they were getting sold again, and so ownership was changing. There was leadership changes and stuff. They didn't really know what they were gonna be doing moving forward with the DCEU, and there were leadership changes at DC, Films basically, which is now DC Studios. It's a new entity, completely separate, like Marvel. So that wasn't the case, but Warner Brothers at the time was all like over the place. So I get it. They took the first movie that took a good 3-4 years to work on. But let's just step back for a second, right? I want to point out something about Christopher Nolan, who made, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy, one of the features probably some of, if not certainly the best superhero movie of all time, The Dark Knight. And in my opinion, 2 or 3 of the best superhero movies of all time in between The Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Now you look at this screen here. Christopher Nolan made Batman Begins in 2005, then made The Prestige in 2006, and then he came back and did The Dark Knight in 2008, and then in between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, which came out in 2012, 4 years later, he went and then he made freaking Inception. I mean, he made Inception. I don't understand. Like he could do.
Christopher Nolan built this in a cave with a pile of scraps. I'm sorry.
It's just
clearly not.
Clearly not. It's just look. I've got. You know what? Like I'm
kidding. Because again, I kind of agree with Lizz a little bit. Like I feel a little bad.
I hear you. I get it. But
nobody
dude,
should be getting death.
I found Matt Reeves' to-do list. I found his to-do list. It says executive produce Cape Crusader. Oh, executive produce The Penguin. Oh, write an Arkham series. Okay. Brood in the Basement. Oh, okay. So he's really getting into the mood. Work on Bex. I'm sure that means, Batman Epic Crime Saga. That's what that means. And then at the very bottom, you see almost in fine print, it says write the Batman 2. And it doesn't have a check mark next to it. It's like he checked off all the other boxes. Well, guess what, man? Here's the only thing that you need to have on your list. Write the Batman 2. Please write the. I don't get it.
We can't.
I know it's backwards, and I just realized it. It's whatever. Flip it on your end. I don't care. Matt Reeves, you need to figure out what the hell you're doing. Now let's just get into the statement from James Gunn. Where did I pull it up? Did I have it? I thought I pulled it up somewhere. Oh, here it is. So James Gunn just put this out earlier today, addressing the article that we were looking at earlier, the whole delay and why there's a delay. And I'll read out what he said. He said, "Sure, yes, it is true. The only reason for the delay is there isn't a full script." And then he says in parentheses, "Those of you who follow me here probably know that already." Which, yes, we talked about it. James Gunn addressed one of the fans asking him about this, I think it was a week or two ago, saying he hasn't seen the first draft for the script yet, which led us to...
I got you covered, Dan.
I'm
not mirrored.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll have to... You can use this on a thumbnail, Dan. Full screen me.
Where's the music?
There you go. There you go. Oh yeah, do the smolder. I could do maybe a smolder version.
Do the smolder? Let's do the smolder version. Yeah, please do.
Okay, that's enough. All right, let's not get crazy here. All right, give you a little tidbit. There you
go. Well, okay, so James
you need to send that to Matt Reeves, and that's it. That's all the motivation he needs.
We need to send him this exact.
He's just gonna have a boner and then just write the script for fucking 3 days straight, and boom.
Another bulge, Dan. Another bulge.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna get back to what James Gunn was saying. He said Matt is committed to making the best film he possibly can, and no one can accurately guess exactly how long a script will take to write. Okay, fair, but you shouldn't take 5 years to write a fucking script. Once there was this finished script, there was around 2 years for pre-production, shooting, and post-production on big films. Hashtag the Batman 2. Okay, look, I get it for a film of this scale. It takes 2 years to do pre-production and then filming the movie and principal photography and then post-production and all that. I get it. Like that's the timeline for Superman. The problem is not with the fact that it's going to take 2 years to do all of that. The problem that we keep like pointing out is we're sitting here in 2024, like December 27, 2024, when you're doing the show. And it's been what, 2.5 years, over 2.5 years since The Batman came out. And if I remember correctly, The Batman 2 was pretty much greenlit in the sense like, go ahead, work on it. Like, here's the money to do it, because like James Gunn's definition is once there's a finished script, then it's actually gonna get greenlit. But Matt Reeves was given the go ahead to work on a sequel like pretty much the same year. It was like 2 months after the movie came out. We knew that he was going to be working on a sequel. He's had since then till now. And my list, even if it was mirrored, Cape Crusader, The Penguin, potentially The Penguin season 2. There's an Arkham series potentially. He's somehow involved in the Batman in the DCU too. Brooding in the Basement. I mean, he probably does that every day. Working on other potential spin-offs. So I'm just like, focus on the main thing. People will not care about anything else because this is John. We talked about this at the top of the show. The optics of this are the real problem, because I totally understand if they're gonna start filming this in the middle or late 2026 or 2025, then they need all of 2026 to get into post-production, and then but even then October 2027. Why not? I mean, I know there was a hold on that date on the schedule for Warner Brothers, and they were meant to put a DC movie out on that date, which is something that we would remember when we first heard about it. We were like, oh, that's when we first speculated that the Batman 2 might move to that date, and here, lo and behold, that's what happened. But still, I mean, it's just like I said, Liz, the optics of this don't make sense to me. Like, move it by a few months. Why a full year?
Yeah, well, so Antonio in the chat is saying that there are rumors that Matt Reeves is possibly going through some personal stuff as well. So in that regard, because I think a lot of people at this point are saying, well, why don't we just get another writer? And James really hasn't come out saying anything negative necessarily, just saying, yes, it's kind of a bummer that we don't have it, but he's clearly still standing behind Matt. So I would render a guess that is something that's going on. There's something else to this story, but also certainly now, because of all the backlash he's getting on socials, if he wasn't having any personal issues, he certainly is at this point. So again, I do kind of feel for Matt. I'm disappointed as a fan, of course, just because I love the production so much and I want more of it. But I'm if we're going to get a good script, if we're going to get a good film out of it, I'm willing to wait. I can't see people really holding off for much longer at this point. So next year, if they turn around and they say, oh, it's going to be 2028, guys, at that point, you got to cut your losses, I think, and either hire a new writer and get the ball rolling and start from scratch, or just say, forget it, we're not doing it at all.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, again, I don't have like despite the fact that I've got the whole, Justice for Batman and WTF Matt Reeves and all that stuff. And yes, I've been very critical of the whole situation. And even in the months leading up to this announcement, now we know that the movie is moving back by a year. I'm not trying to like personally attack the man. Like, it's not yes, sometimes it takes longer to work through a script. You may have writer's block, but it's just one of those things where you're putting it comes across as they're putting the cart before the horse when it's the Penguin, and Matt Reeves is doing promotional work for that, interviews, and doing interviews not just for the behind the scenes, the special looks at the end of every episode of the Penguin, but also then talking to news outlets, talking about what his approach was and how he was so proud of what they accomplished with the Penguin. And then now he's done interviews talking about how we're basically working on potentially talking to Lauren LaFranc about a season 2 of the Penguin, and then he's still talked about there's a Arkham series. Like, all of those things are great as compliments to the movie.
Well, but like we've been saying this whole time, James Gunn has been saying a little too much, and he has been making himself a little too available. So if anything, this is a problem that he has created by constantly throwing out giving everybody a sneak preview or a timeline or an outline of what the upcoming projects are. Maybe wait until you have a script and you're happy with it and you've got everybody signed on before you open your fucking mouth. Maybe start there. So now he's backtracking and he's trying to do right by Matt because he knows Matt is getting all the static from fans. Well, maybe you shouldn't have said anything at all until you knew for sure you had a script and you guys were good to go. This is the problem when you're constantly feeding in to the noise and giving everybody what they want. You end up fucking over a lot of other people by accident. So I think that's been the issue with James being a little too accessible, and we've been talking about this for weeks now. So here's exactly example number one. This is exactly the problem that it creates when you do that.
I mean, and you know what? Like, here's the thing. Like, I appreciate all the insights and the responses, but I think every once in a while James Gunn does trip over a little bit with his words. And when he put out there that, oh, he hasn't seen the first draft of the script, he may or may not have been aware of the fact that, you know, Matt Reeves had put it out there, I think either through a post of his own on social media or answering a fan question or in some kind of interview saying that he's pretty much done with it. So those two statements clearly clashed, and then fans started wondering, is there drama behind the scenes?
It just goes to show what a fan that James is, because he's clearly really excited for these things, and that's great. But, you know, sometimes, babe, you gotta be better at keeping secrets. You know, like you can't give everything away and then turn around and be like, oh shit, hold on, sorry, we weren't ready. Well, stop talking.
Like, exactly. And again, we're talking about, like, not just the announcement today, because the thing about what the announcement today with the movie moving back by another year, we've all been speculating about it for months, and now this just feels like it's confirmation. And so, you know, it's sort of like we start looking back at the events leading up to today, and we're like, oh, that happened, so now it explains all of those things. But just the fact that he could have said, oh, yeah, Matt Reeves is still working on it. Instead, he was like, I haven't even seen the first draft of the script. And in the moment, he was probably like, it's still a ways away. But what it came across as is, oh, Matt Reeves, you know, may say that he's, you know, been working on it really, really hard. I haven't even seen the first draft, so I don't know what's going on with it. Like, a lot of people took it that way. Like, it almost felt like, you know, Matt Reeves got thrown under the bus. Probably, like, not on purpose, and that was definitely not James Gunn's intention. I wouldn't believe so. Now, of course, I do want to address Antonio Baker, who, Antonio, you are really pointing out the idea that, hey, Robert Pattinson is in demand right now. Yes, he is. He's in Mickey 17. He's in the new Christopher Nolan movie. The dude is got a lot of movies on his schedule, and that's totally fair. But, you know, and yes, you cannot just hire any random person off the street. I don't think any of us on the panel here were talking about take this movie out of Matt Reeves' hands and give it to another director. We were saying,
I'm kind of thinking that at this point.
Well, okay, maybe John is, but I'm saying, like
I said, if they go to push it another year, at that point, okay, cut ties.
Like, it's one of those things. Which, again, if Matt Reeves is working on 5 different things, if he's got his hands in all these different pies. Look, James Gunn has his hands in all of the different pies, right? Because he's directing Superman.
Yeah, but he's written like 15 scripts ever since he got.
But this is what I'm saying. Like,
CEO.
James Gunn has shown that he can have his hand in 8 different pies and still do all the work and still make the movies, you know, release date. Superman, they dated for 2025. And they're hitting that date. They're not delaying it. It was never delayed, and that movie was in development and put into development around the same time as the Batman was. Because remember, James Gunn got hired the same year that the Batman came out, later that same year, and it was pretty much a couple of months apart that we got the news that, okay, Batman 2, there will be a sequel to the Batman, and that James Gunn is taking over as co-CEO of DC Studios. So, and then we know that James Gunn had been working on that Superman script even before then. So maybe he had a bit of a head start. But having said that, though, you know, he had to then go in and set the plans in motion for a whole new cinematic universe, work on, like, you know, 7 episodes worth of scripts for Creature Commandos, and then he wrote Peacemaker season 2. He directed several episodes of that show. He was, you know, closely involved in, you know, Creature Commandos. He, of course, was directing a big ass feature film for Superman. But clearly he has shown he can do that. Matt Reeves, on the other hand,
he doesn't get sleep, but, you know, he does.
We get it, but, like, I'm just saying, Matt Reeves is his exec produced an animated show that's on Amazon Prime, the Cape Crusader show. He's supposedly working on a couple of more spin-offs for the Batman Epic Cinematic Universe, whatever.
Sixth and Idaho is his production company, right? That's his Sixth and Idaho, and that production company is working on a lot of DC
different things. They are, but I'm saying like none of those things Matt Reeves is outside of the Batman 2 as far as we're aware. Matt Reeves isn't writing the scripts for the Penguin or Penguin season 2 or any other series. He's one of the executive producers. He's working on developing it. He wasn't the showrunner on the Penguin. So I'm like, where is all it? Like, why is there such a delay? Like I mentioned earlier, right? Yes, Christopher Nolan doesn't write all of his movies. I mean, nowadays he does, but like, you know, when he was making the Batman movies, he didn't write those movies, or he co-wrote them with Jonathan Nolan. So his brother, of course, but he was able to go and make another big budget movie, you know, in the 4 intervening years between each of the Batman movies, and somehow make it all happen. And I bet you like the scale at which The Dark Knight Rises was made was much bigger in terms of like the physical locations, the sets, the amount of extras they had, the fact they were shooting with actual IMAX cameras, all of that stuff. The Batman 2, there's a lot of stuff shot in the volume. They have like sets that were already built for the first movie. A lot of the same characters are coming back. And I know that, and by the way, the whole Robert Pattinson situation, it's a double-edged sword. The man is in demand, which means if you keep moving your filming schedule, eventually he's going to be like, I am busy. I got this other commitment. I can't move everything around. I'm sorry, I've got a mustache. Like CGI that shit. Like it's stuff like that can happen. So I do begin to worry now that, yes, it's still very much possible that they go into production middle of next year and they make their 2027 release date. But we thought that when they were talking about making the 2026 release date. And before that, we thought that about them making the 2025 release date. So now that it's moved 2 times, it's sort of like each time they announce a release date change, it starts to reduce that faith that the audience has in this movie getting released on time, and B, ever coming out, really, because all of these complications. Because Liz, the other thing is, this movie is supposed to take place literally like a few weeks after the first movie ends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Robert Pattinson is going to be 6 years older than he was in the first movie.
Well, and
I mean,
and
he
again,
still
hopefully,
looks great.
well, he does. But,
Sure.
But again, hopefully at this point, I mean, he is a vampire. Hopefully at this point, James Gunn has learned his lesson, and he's going to shut up a little bit and keep a little more things closer to the vest. But now he's got this DC website or whatever the shit. So I don't know. But again, as much as you guys want to shit on Marvel all day long, like, they don't jump the gun, pardon the pun, when it comes to talking about their projects like this. They know when shit's going to be done, when it's going to be ready, and then they make that announcement. By
except when it's the Blade movie.
Well, I mean, but he's doing too much. He's saying too much. He needs to pull back. You want to talk about 2025 now? Maybe we're getting into 2026. Okay, fine. But at this point, stop talking about projects that aren't right around the corner, because this is all you're doing is whipping people up into a frenzy like this. And this is the problem.
Exactly. I'm like, this is where I hope, because to the credit of James Gunn, the Batman Epic Crime Saga is a franchise that was around and established before he took the job at DC Studios. So his approach of, we're not going to greenlight anything until the script is ready, he's applying that now, and that's probably why they moved the release date, because they didn't want to rush to the 2026 release date. And maybe he felt like the extra year is going to be what they need to get this right. I get it. But you know, I look at Matt Reeves and say, you can't. It's, again, optics. You cannot work on 5 other adjacent projects, Batman-related projects, and then have the main thing be delayed twice. Like,
right.
You got to get that shit right first. I don't care. Like, if can you imagine if, like, after the Dark Knight, like, we heard that the Dark Knight Rises is going to come out. Oh, no, not in 2012. Oh, it got delayed to 2013. Christopher Nolan's working on Inception, you know? Like, it's a great movie, you know? And then now it's going to get delayed another year to 20. Because he's working on Interstellar, guys. Like, he's busy. I'm like, focus on the main movie first, because if the Batman movie franchise itself, like the core movies, because here's the thing, now you're putting even more pressure on the Batman 2 to be good, because people are going to be like, we waited 5.5 fucking years for this. Can you imagine if that movie comes out and people are like, oh no, this is not nearly as good as the first movie? Like, you're putting more pressure on yourself to deliver now. It's that thing of, it's a double-edged sword, and I just really hope it doesn't blow up in their face, because I really love Robert Pattinson's Batman. The Batman, I think, is the best, Batman anything made since the Dark Knight trilogy, and there's a lot of potential there. Clearly, The Penguin was an amazing show, and I really do hope they come out with a second season, despite the fact that he's a scumbag, but that's the character. I get it. But if they can't get their shit together, I mean, I'm concerned, because like now I'm like, okay, we're gonna be sitting here in a year from now saying this movie's coming out in 2028, and like John said, then there might be like, well, Robert Pattinson has backed out, and they're gonna recast the role, or we're just gonna get a DCU Batman. But are we gonna get a DCU Batman? Because here's the thing, it's not the news is not any better. The grass is not greener if you move over to the DCU, because while the Bex is struggling to put out a new Batman movie, so is the DCU. And Andy Muschietti was recently on a podcast, and he was asked about it. And there's this direct quote from him in this, so let me read that really quickly. And Liz, I want to get your reaction to this, because to put it into context, Batman Brave and the Bold was originally announced as part of that big, DCU announcement that James Gunn put out, where he announced like 8 different projects. Half of them were movies, half of them are TV shows. Of course, the first of which is Superman. Creature Commanders is already out. Superman coming out next year. Supergirl is going to go into production next year, as well as Lanterns. So a lot of those things are happening. But you would wonder, like, hey, probably the biggest name on that slate announcement was Batman. Like, DC Comics is Detective Comics. Batman, it's the house that Batman built, and Batman is the most successful movie franchise character that they have. So they announced a Batman movie featuring Damian Wayne, his son, and which we haven't seen that version of Robin in live action before. Mm-hmm. Now, Andy Muschietti, who directed The Flash, he was attached to the movie right in that announcement saying Andy Muschietti is working on this. But then we heard that he was working on that Welcome to Derry show on HBO, which is like, in the It universe, the movies that he directed there. Now Andy Muschietti is saying the Batman, the Brave and the Bold, that project has been postponed a little bit, so I might do another film before that. What? He might do another film before? What is that? What the fuck does that mean? So according to James Gunn, let me go back here. See, now we're going to connect the dots a little bit, guys. So according to James Gunn, once there was a finished script, there's around 2 years for pre-production, shooting, and post-production on big films. I'd imagine the Batman Brave and the Bold qualifies as a big film. And then Andy Muschietti is like, I think I'm going to work on another film before that. So let's do the math on that, shall we, Andy? Andy, you're going to work on another film that will probably take you 2 years, plus the amount of time it takes you to write the script, unless you have a script that's ready to go. And then maybe by then they will have a DCU Batman script ready for you, and then you're gonna work on that for 2 years. I'm already thinking it's 2032. Liz, when are we gonna get? Are we gonna get a DCU Batman Brave and the Bold movie anytime soon? Do we need to? Maybe Robert Pattinson will be old enough to be the DCU Batman by then, and be old enough to have like a Damian Wayne, like literally what Manos Time said at the start of the stream. Maybe he can easily just transition to the DCU Batman at that point. I don't know. Like, what do you think about this? Ugh. I'm losing my voice. I think, Liz, you're muted.
Yep, I'm muted. I'm sorry. I have worked for a lot of different companies, a lot of different environments, surrounded by a lot of different personalities. If I hear someone is in the middle of a job and they're talking about doing another job at some point, to me, that tells me they're not very happy with where they're at, what they've got going on. So I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. But for him to just kind of to put it out into the universe that, hey, I'd even be willing to entertain the idea of doing another project at some point in between all of this chaos, that's not a good sign. And that's not something that you want to hear your employees openly sharing with other people. So it's not looking good. But again, James needs to stop sharing. He's oversharing. If he stops talking about these things and let people do their jobs rather than get inundated with social media trolls, maybe we would have things in a timely manner. But unfortunately, I think his enthusiasm is now putting immense pressure on the people he's surrounding himself with. And that's not a good thing. That's not a helpful thing. That's great that you're supporting everybody. That's great that you're behind them. But I don't think he realizes the now, especially because the stuff that he's been showing us so far has done so well and people are loving it so much. I think that just increases the pressure for everybody coming afterwards. So he needs to pump the brakes. He really does. And again, I don't see this new DC fan site, whatever the shit we're calling it,
DC fan first.
Yeah, I don't see that helping the situation. I really don't.
I mean, John, what do you think about this? Again, this is just it's like it's a double whammy kind of a day, right? Because it's one thing that we get the big, I mean, it rocked most people's world when they heard that the Batman 2 is getting moved by a whole year, and then to get a follow up saying,
I mean,
from Andy Muschietti,
here's the thing with Andy,
he might do
Muschietti,
another movie before this Batman.
It
movie?
might not be his fault. Again, much like with the Batman, it might be a script fault. The thing is, we can't blame anybody, which honestly might be good for death threats, because apparently Matt Reeves has been getting those on Twitter. So like we, might be good. That may be protecting this writer who also isn't, doing stuff. So I think it might be a writer issue, and I don't totally blame Andy Muschietti for that. So I think that's just him being like, okay, the script isn't ready, so I'm gonna just move on to something else. So I think we've been blaming Andy Muschietti this whole time because it's like, oh, he's working on Welcome to Derry. Why don't you fucking work on Batman? You're just an executive producer. It's like, whatever. Why are you doing this? However, it might be the case where it's like, all right, I'm not writing the script. I'm just kind of waiting around.
I hear you.
See what happens. And he's like,
sense.
I want to direct another project. I want to make some more money. He
wants to stay busy. Yeah. Andy Muschietti is a director who's in demand, much like Robert Pattinson, who's an actor in demand, and I understand completely. But this is again the point, stands that hey, eventually Robert Pattinson might say, hey man, I got other things that I want to do, and I just don't want to. Even if he's contractually obliged, if Robert Pattinson's just not into the idea of playing I'm not saying that's going to happen. He loves the character. They might, and if they start filming next year, then we're going to hopefully get the movie, the Batman 2 that is, in 2027. But as far as The Brave and the Bold goes, we heard not that long ago, I think I put it up earlier, that statement from James Gunn that he wasn't happy with where the Brave and the, this is from December 5th, where the Brave and the Bold script is, and what's going on with Booster Gold and Waller. So it looks like those things still need a bit of work. James Gunn said they're not quite where I want them to be yet. So there's, and he said the same thing multiple times since, but it makes sense that Andy Muschietti would move on to a different project. It's similar, I think, in many ways to James Mangold saying, hey man, I've just been busy getting this complete unknown movie, off the ground. And I don't know what's going on with Swamp Thing. They told me that I can, I'll be working on it, but so far, like, there's no updates from James Mangold. So like, I think this is where Lizz's point again was pretty good, saying that when you make those announcements, and granted, James Gunn has followed through on a lot of that stuff, and it's still what we're talking about here is maybe 2 out of the 10 things that they announced are not on track, whereas the other 8 are. Now, of course, the ones that are on track, a lot of them James Gunn wrote himself, so he has a lot more control over that process. Whereas he with something like The Brave and the Bold and the Batman 2, he's going to other people who are working under him and saying, well, what do you got for me? And then they present to him whatever they have, and he says, well, you need to keep working on this. There's certain things that are not working, and I'm not going to greenlight this unless you can make an improvement there. So I get it, but like, this has happened with Marvel with the Blade situation. Now this is something that was basically an endemic issue with the DCEU, where at one point we were like gonna get maybe 6 different Harley Quinn projects, of which like 9 of them never happened and probably never will. But the idea that you announce something and then it takes a lot longer for it to actually come out. Now the other thing I wanted to kind of quickly point out is, granted, they didn't date most of those projects when James Gunn made the big announcement with the whole new DCU Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters Part 1. They did announce the projects, and so people do have an expectation for them. And I do wonder now, if the script isn't ready and Andy Muschietti goes to direct another movie before he directs the Batman movie for the DCU, how far back does that push this movie? Because we already know that the DC calendar for releases is pretty much filled up for next year, for 2026, for 2027. They even have a couple of things lined up for 2028. And given that James Gunn said it takes 2 years from the moment that the script is actually greenlit, I mean, John, like, and even Liz, like, you tell me, like, what do you guys think? Where does this movie land? Are we talking 2030 now, 2032? Like, is Andy Muschietti even gonna stick around that long? Like, if he doesn't see a script that's ready to go, like, how much of a delay are we looking at this point?
Well, again, the question is, when are we going to start cutting ties with people if we
Yeah.
keep having these delays? And like you said, Andy himself might just say, I'm not waiting around anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm moving on. I've got other things to do. You have to make those big decisions. There's going to come a point when either, it's not going to be worth it anymore. Like you said, Dan, you keep the people waiting. They're just going to say, you know what, to hell with it. I don't care. I mean, even shows like Yellowstone had that problem. They had that big pause in between, and fans kind of fell off because there's too much content out in the world now. I have 500 other options that I can turn to, and I'm going to forget about your little project. I'm going to forget about the little ideas that you had floating around because you kept me waiting. So
exactly.
I understand James really, shooting right out of the gate, trying to get everybody excited, trying to get everybody on board, trying to get the fans, looking forward to the future of the DCU. But honey, you're doing too much, and this is what comes of that, and this is the consequence. So. He needs to start focusing on one project at a time and be reasonable about it. Not a project that's coming out in 2028. Talk about a project that's coming out in 2025. At the most, talk about a project that's coming out early 2026. But this is the problem that we have now created for ourselves. So I don't blame people for getting frustrated. I don't blame fans, certainly, but again, I don't blame producers, writers, actors. I don't blame any of them. We want to get on with our lives.
Yeah. I mean, and John, when you look at, again, this is like a two-headed monster that we're dealing with today, because it would be one thing if we got, it's just, I'm not saying Andy Muschietti looked at they're putting out this new, scheduling shakeup today, so I'm going to go on a podcast and talk about the fact that
he didn't, obviously he didn't plan it like that.
But it's just from a PR perspective, for all the positive hype that, we have had for Superman's trailer and Cruiser Commandos doing so well. I mean, Brian made some good points in the chat saying that, hey, Matt Reeves was hired well before James Gunn came into the world of DC. Even, I mean, James Gunn overlapped with Matt Reeves' early couple of years with DC because he was working on the Suicide Squad and stuff, and the Peacemaker TV series. But it wasn't, it was until well after Matt Reeves has already, been working on the Batman that James Gunn got the DC Studios job that he currently has. So some of the remnant, even the Penguin was in development as a TV series and worked on some of it before James Gunn was in the co-CEO role.
And
so it's not like his
and
problem.
In that case, it would be more likely that they cut ties with Matt Reeves and they cut ties with Andy Muschietti, because James Gunn specifically chose Andy Muschietti for Batman Forever. Why? I don't know, since The Flash sucked donkey dicks, but that could be studio meddling. Who knows? But he also defended a guy who slammed people and threw chairs at people and possibly diddled a 12-year-old. But, it's whatever. Like, that's not the first time this has happened in Hollywood, and it won't be the last. But even then, it's just it's like you built up all this stuff, and then literally one day, it's now like crashing back down. It's like, guys, come on. And we're not saying it's James Gunn's fault. It's just he maybe needs to calm down. I think Jennifer, his wife, Jennifer Holland, needs to take the phone away from him. Maybe like put parental controls on the computer and just be like, James, you need to calm down. But even that, I don't think he talks that much, but I understand like talking too much. Yeah. But it's just like, I feel like, I mean, as somebody said, it might be a writer's. I think it was NTR Pricing, very interesting username. It might be a writer's room issue. All of this reads to me that Gunn is not happy with the script or pitches that he has received, and that's what I'm saying. Andy Muschietti is probably like, "Where's that script? Oh, no script yet. Okay, well, I'm gonna go do another horror movie." So I think it just is James Gunn being like, "I want this to be a tight ship. And I want this to have the best we can possibly give the fans. And with that, I have to keep delaying this stuff. And, it's more likely that the Batman stuff is not happening. But, it's obviously we'll have to just wait and see. But it's just like, we got some goodwill, and now the DC curse has come back full force. And now some fans are getting pissed, and they're upset.
Well, again, think about any job you've ever worked. if your company says something along the lines of like, oh, this is gonna come down the pipeline in 2028, you're thinking to yourself, are we still even going to be in business by 2020? Like it's not like that's next week. You're talking in terms of years. Nobody can get excited for something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, right now, I think the only project DC has dated for 2028 is a dynamic duo animated movie, which we're still wondering if that's part of the DCU or not. But nonetheless, I mean, we also have to, again, kind of like, let's kind of put a little bit of a line between the two conversations, because it does bleed over, because, you know, the same people are involved for the most part. But yeah, the whole Batman 2 situation, I think a little bit of it is James Gunn's fault. Because if he hadn't put that statement out there, like responding to a fan on social media saying, hey, I haven't even seen the first draft of the script yet, which in the moment probably felt like him saying, well, you know, the movie is still a ways away. I haven't even seen the first version of the script. It came across as, like I said before, I haven't even seen the first draft of the script yet, so I don't know what's going on with that project. Whereas, you know, Matt Reeves had been telling people online that, you know, he's working on it, that they're prepping to film next year. So all of a sudden, it created this like disconnect for audiences, because the two contradictory statements. Now, can you imagine if James Gunn hadn't said that, and we were already wondering, like, okay, you know, more and more time is passing by, and we're not hearing any more news. And we still don't know when this movie is going to start filming. We're starting to hear like, oh, Supergirl is going to start filming next month. Lantern's going to start filming in February. So, and then they would have made the announcement, and we were like, oh, okay, makes sense, right? Because John and I speculated even that, hey, at this rate, maybe they're looking to move the Batman to like 2027. And now, because of what James Gunn said, you start to wonder, well, you know, are things taking longer because, again, James Gunn is looking at whatever Matt Reeves has given to him or, you know, presented, and he just doesn't like it. Kind of like what's going on with the Batman Brave and the Bold. And by the way, before we keep the conversation going, Patrick, Brian, and NTR Prizing, thanks for stopping by. We haven't seen you guys in the chat before, but we really do appreciate you guys stopping in. So subscribe and hit that like button. We are here 5 days a week talking about DC, as you can see right now, and you know, we can be very passionate about it. Now, as far as the Brave and the Bold situation goes, because yes, the Batman situation, some of that is not under James Gunn's control, because the approach that he has clashes with the fact that the Batman 2 got a release date before James Gunn was really settled into his job even, right? So that's a little bit of baggage from the old regime that he has to carry on and then shepherd along the way. And he can control what he's got in front of him, but he can't, you know, fix what was done before he got on board. So the Batman Brave and the Bold, on the other hand, I would say this is more just like, it's not his fault that the scripts aren't where he wants them to be, but, you know, having a director, then this is where I'm like, just talk to Andy and whisper in his ear and be like, man, just don't like go out and say stuff like this, because the biggest thing for me here is the way Andy Muschietti talks about this. He's not, and this is obviously he's saying he's gonna work on another movie potentially, but before this he was like, I'm working on Welcome to Derry and stuff like that. But in general, the impression that I get from Andy Muschietti is that he looks at the Batman Brave and the Bold and he looks at it as just another project on his timeline. Like I'm like, Batman Brave and the Bold is gonna be the biggest thing you work on in your freaking career. It's gonna probably have the potential to make the most amount of money. It's the biggest movie. It's one of the biggest movie franchises in Hollywood. And as a fan, and not even if I wasn't a super fan of Batman, I would still be looking at it as like, don't talk down to that movie, right? It's a big project. It's a Batman movie. It's like it's like a Superman movie. It's the Holy Trinity, one of the pillars of the Holy Trinity of DC. So that is the other thing that probably rubs a lot of fans the wrong way, that he's talking almost like, yeah, it's another movie, the script isn't ready, I'm gonna go work on a bunch of other stuff. Like, and and it's fair to have that reaction too. So I do, and like you said, John, though, it's more likely that they can just cut, you know, not Matt Reeves, but Andy Muschietti loose and be like, we'll work with a different director if Andy's not interested anymore. Obviously, Andy was like the 8th director to walk in on The Flash and actually like finally follow through on that movie. So it's very possible they could go with a different director if they wanted to.
Shows how good that did. Look at what we got.
But yes, it's just been a rough day for Batman fans. That's all. We got also Joker 1940 or JKR 1940 in the chat. Hello to you for the first time in the chat. And he's saying if Pattinson joins the DCU as Batman, does Matt or Andy direct it? and how do you please the director who doesn't
I
get to
don't
make
think
it?
it just would seem too impossible. Like Batman is just
yeah.
way too realistic for what the DCU plans to be, and I don't think that's going to be the case. And the thing is, Arpats is way too young. Not in real life, as we know, but like in terms of the movie where he's supposed to be like late
Right.
20s. I mean, obviously you can change shit and not have Damian Wayne be the Robin, but it's like that's what they want the plan to be. So like I just don't think
Yeah. Oh, we got Ray J in the chat. Hello, Ray J.
Yeah, clearly you're a slow writer. I've seen snails write scripts
Yeah.
faster than you can. Damn.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro.
Yep, and then NTR Pricing saying that Gunn did also say when on the set visit for all those journalists for Superman, he said, "Hey man, if the Superman movie doesn't work out, we're not, we may not make all those other projects," which he probably said half jokingly considering all these things are going into production. But again, saying things like that puts more pressure on him to deliver. And it's one thing when James Gunn is, because again, as a creative, him being an executive as a co-CEO of DC of the new DC Studios is something that's new to James Gunn to a certain degree as well. It's not like he's led a studio in the past, and he is by trade a director, writer first, not a producer. So him being in this position now, I think him treating these projects that other people are working on for him the same way that he treats the projects he has all the control over because he's writing and directing them, like Creature Commandos, like Peacemaker season 2, like Superman. It could be tricky because you don't know if the other people are going to follow through with the same level of commitment, passion, and execution that you do. So I think maybe there are some lessons to be learned here in that regard as well. Ray J saying I think it's pronounced enterprise. Oh, and enterprising. Okay. Okay, we got it. Thank you for correcting that pronunciation. So thank you, Enterprising, for stopping by in the chat, and thank you, Ray J, for correcting that pronunciation for us.
Yeah, he corrected it before, but yeah, that's okay.
I'm sorry. I just noticed for the first time. I apologize. I'm
although NTR Pricing is certainly would be a very interesting username.
Yeah.
Maybe not for out in public, but maybe in like Reddit or something. But yeah. I don't know. It's all
Eagle Eye, by the way, is potentially throwing out a theory that I think is interesting, saying maybe he's waiting for Superman to see how well that does, and because of depending on how well it does, he might decide to eventually bring Pattinson potentially into the cinematic universe rather than having him be his own thing. I don't think that's the case here.
Well, but also in the meantime, just stop talking though. Like just
exactly.
stop, then just wait. Then shut up and wait.
Yes. Yep. JKR 1940 saying some people are hinting Matt has something really bad going on in his personal life. That's why he's taking it so long. It's a rumor. We don't know that. I mean, like Ray J pointed out that he did an interview with Zoe Kravitz recently. I think it was Directors on Directors, like the Variety series, and they talked about what projects they're working on. And Matt said that hey, it's taking longer than he expected, but he's still working on it. So I mean, and obviously it looks like they're still going into production on the Batman 2 next year. So it's just one of those things where now it's showtime. Like you can't move this stuff around any more than you already have, and especially because it's not like this is Swamp Thing or Booster Gold. No offense to all of those characters, but Batman is Batman. You can only get away with moving around Batman so much because people are gonna start to wonder just how much respect are you gonna give to this character who should be one of your cornerstones for this new DCU. And if the Batman Brave and the Bold takes another 5 years to happen, then people will start to wonder: are we just gonna keep getting these smaller movies like Clayface and another Clayface and another Clay, or in line with those, the B, C, D level characters rather than Wonder Woman, Flash, which they're holding a beat on development as well.
Yes.
And we have no idea what's going on with Paradise Lost, and people are starting to wonder. Yes, you're focusing on all these smaller characters or these characters that we aren't as familiar with, but what about the ones that we know so well? Because a Batman movie will do well at the box office. I mean, David Zaslav should be like, James, what's going on with that Batman movie? What's going on with both?
I need to,
movies?
clear my $20 trillion debt that I have from AT&T. So,
yeah, But anyway, guys, we can talk about this all night. Clearly, we already have. Let us know in the comments if you aren't watching live what you think about this whole situation with both of the Batman movies. And of course, if you're in the live chat, thank you for letting us know what you think. We have, of course, been talking about your comments. And while you're here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. We are here 5 days a week. Of course, we're not here on Saturdays and Sundays yet. Maybe we'll think about it in the new year. We'll see. But Monday through Friday, DCU Daily. We do have to, of course, continue on with the show because Also Curious times DCU Daily isn't done yet. We now have to switch over to talking about the other big and these days bigger brand in the world of comic books. That is, of course, Marvel. Marvel Studios is busy with so much right now. They've got 2 Avengers movies on the docket. There's a Spider-Man 4 on the way. Today, though, we're going to focus on a couple of things with Avengers, Doomsday, and then Fantastic Four. So on this episode of MCU Weekly, I want to start out by talking about some new promotional artwork that was put out for the Fantastic Four First Steps movie that is about to come out in a few months. It's basically coming out 2 weeks after the Superman movie, right? So Liz, I want to start with you. Looking at this artwork that they put out, it's again that's just very nostalgic in the way that it's trying to emulate that retro futuristic look of the 60s. We get a bit of a closer look at the design of the Thing, which is closer to the 2000s Fantastic Four movies than it is to like the Fan Four Stick version with Michael B. Jordan and stuff. I like it. To me, this looks, very creative.
It looks straight out of the comic.
Straight out of the comics, and even the Human Torch artwork looks amazing. What do you guys think of the two character posters? Posters, artwork, I don't know what you want to call it, but
looks
just
pretty hot.
I love it, and I hope
hard.
that. Yeah, I love it, and I hope that we do get the posters. It'd be nice to hang one of those back here. So we'll see. But I love the direction for sure.
Yep, perfect. Good stuff there. I want to switch over now. This was just a quick look at something that.
Now we get into ranting mode.
Now we get into ranting mode because it says it there on the graphic down below. We have to talk about how Robert Downey Jr. Now, this is in news because we already known this now for like a month and a half that Robert Downey Jr. or more than that actually, that RDJ is coming back to the MCU, but this time as Doctor Doom. We also recently heard that Chris Evans is returning in Avengers Doomsday. We don't know if he's going to be playing Captain America, although it looks like he's returning as Steve Rogers, but it could be from a parallel universe. Maybe he's playing old Steve Rogers. Maybe he's going to be young Steve Rogers. I don't know which version of Captain America he's going to be. Even if he is going to be Captain America, maybe he plays Agent Hydra or whatever, or something like that. So between those two announcements,
Captain Hydra, thank you.
Captain Hydra, whatever. I'm sorry. I wasn't as familiar with the Captain America lore. But there's this article on Collider today that I came across, which I thought was interesting, and they make a few good points in there, Liz.
Yeah.
So they talk about how RDJ and Chris Evans' return to the MCU feels like a betrayal to everything that Avengers Endgame basically accomplished, and giving what was a very heartfelt send-off to both Iron Man as well as Captain America in 2 very different ways, but nonetheless, 2 characters who were the foundational pillars of the MCU in the first 4 phases, and they sent them off into the sunset, and then we were supposed to be moving forward with new characters, new stories, a new lineup of Avengers, but here we are. The next Avengers movie after Endgame is going to feature both of those guys coming back and playing what feels like leading roles in that movie. So Liz, where do you land on this subject matter? Do you feel like this is a betrayal to everything they did to give those guys a big send-off and like the whole signature and the credits send-off with the music and they're signing off from the MCU, but 5 years later they're back? Like what's going on?
I will say, before reading this article, I didn't necessarily see it that way, but I did feel kind of icky when they first revealed that RDJ was going to be coming back as Doctor Doom. I was like, okay. Like, I don't have a problem with it if it makes sense, if it works in the context of the film, if I understand what they're doing, like. But at the same time, like, I was not one of those people at San Diego Comic-Con being like, oh my God, like I wasn't losing my shit because now quite frankly, I think they were just losing their shit because they were in the same room as RDJ. I don't think it's necessarily because of the character that he's going to be playing. I think when everybody left that building and had a real think about it, they were like, oh yeah, that's a choice. But after reading this article, I kind of reflected on it, and it's like, yeah, like, collectively as fans, and I know everybody, because heaven forbid I say anything positive about Marvel, but collectively as fans, like, we all kind of went through the various stages of grief, saying goodbye to these characters that gave us so much, and these actors that gave us so much over the 10 years. But it's kind of insulting because we've moved on. We're going in another direction. We've got new superheroes. We have new actors that have been in other projects. So why would we do this? Again, the speculation with, even I had said, if Chris Evans is coming back as Captain America, I think that's a slap in the face of Anthony Mackie. If he's coming back in the form of like a flashback or something like that, because Anthony Mackie, as we know, is going to be in this film as well as Captain America. So if he comes back in the form of a flashback, then fine. If he comes back in the form of Johnny Storm, a variant of Johnny Storm, we're still fucking around with the multiverse, then okay, fine. If he comes back as Captain Hydra, even better, because it's a brand new character that we haven't seen yet. I have not felt great about either one of these decisions ever since it was announced. And now, after reading this article, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. It is kind of insulting because we got what we needed from these guys, and now it's time to let somebody else come in and take on these roles. And that's why Ryan Reynolds has that famous joke in Deadpool and Wolverine, until you're 90, because that seems to be what Marvel has decided to do these days. I don't necessarily agree with it. Again, I love both actors. And again, as long as it makes sense for the context of the film, for the MCU, if it makes sense, that's one thing. But frankly, I don't want to see these guys for another 5 years. I really don't. I'd much rather see them in other films and other projects. I think they need to move on at this point.
Yeah, like Red 2 and Oppenheimer 2, Godzilla comes back.
Yeah, because that's basically what you're saying is Avengers Doomsday is going to be the Red 2 of this franchise. Is that what's going to happen?
I mean, it's probably going to be dog shit, but it's
I mean, look,
what it is.
There is a counter argument that, hey, look, these are the two biggest characters. They are the pillars of this franchise. So for them to be doing a Doomsday movie, especially one that leads into a Secret Wars movie, of course they're going to be back. My problem isn't so much with that. It's the idea that you're bringing them and you're then putting them front and center again, rather than moving on with new characters that, look, people are still wondering, where the heck is that Shang-Chi sequel? Like, is it still happening? I mean, what is going on with we know that Moon Knight is probably going to go into a season 2 that is now being turned into a movie. But what happened to the Iron Wars, or was it Armor Wars project that was meant to be a Disney Plus show and then turned into a movie?
But also to that point, Dan, and thank you, because I forgot to bring that up as well. There are 4 actors playing the characters of the Fantastic. Like, we're not talking about Pedro. We're not like, it's a Fantastic Four movie. It's not a Captain America movie. It's not a Doctor Doom movie. It's a Fantastic Four movie. So unfortunately, these guys are also taking the attention away of the main actors. And when people sit down in the theater, they're going to go, how come we only got 10 minutes of Chris Evans? Or how come we only got a half an hour total of RDJ?
It buries the other characters down the marquee. Yeah.
Right. Because it's not about them. So it is pretty. And again, I want to be supportive because I do love what they deliver, but it's just, I've seen these guys. I've lived with them for 10 years. I loved them for 10 years. I will support. I saw Endgame in theaters 10 fucking times, guys. Okay. Like that's over 30
a lot of time.
hours of devotion from start to finish. Okay. Like, I love them. But I don't need them to keep showing up in projects. The only thing that would make sense, honestly, is Deadpool. That would only make Ryan Reynolds randomly popping his head into different projects is the only thing that makes sense right now, the way things are going. So again, if they do it in a way that makes sense, fine. But I don't want to see these guys for the next 5-6 years. I really like let this be a one-off, and then we need to move on already.
Yeah. I mean, and then again, the point we were trying to make, that is basically Avengers Infinity War was a movie that focused on like bringing all the big characters from the previous phases together. Then Avengers Endgame ended up being another movie of where they focused on the core 6 from the OG line of the Avengers. And then they ended up signing off by the end, going off into the distance in their own ways. Hawkeye retired for the 4th time. Before unretiring for his TV show and then retiring again. Captain America went to the past and had his dance with Peggy. Speaking of which, Agent Carter is back in Avengers Doomsday as well, apparently. So she's not done yet.
That's all right. We didn't get enough of her. That's fine.
That her
That's
character,
okay.
I get it, but like it's just I'm
we're gonna resurrect Chadwick Boseman to put him in Avengers Doomsday.
Come on, John, that's not nice.
But
honestly, at this point, it's just that's where the point that Marvel's gonna get to. Like, goddamn.
It just look. We know that they're gonna go into the world of X-Men characters after Secret Wars, and that's kind of the next big phase of Marvel. But it does make you wonder. This is the first Avengers movie since Endgame, and who's in the lunchbox? Like, where are the Avengers? I mean, I know they don't need to be an official team, and we keep seeing in the trailers for Captain America: Brave New World that Thunderbolt Ross, President Ross wants, Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, to assemble the new event or to reassemble the Avengers. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, so who are the new Avengers? Are we gonna bring Bruce Banner back? Who, I mean, he's got a son now. I guess
Shang-Chi is supposed to be a member of the Avengers. When are we getting? Yeah.
I mean, where's Scarlet Witch? I mean, she looks like she's gone. I mean, Doctor Strange is off into the multiverse of madness, still trying to close up all the different, what do they call them, incursions. So I mean, but having said that, they introduced a whole. I mean, Miss Marvel, of course. You've got Captain Marvel. You've got what's the other, Photon? Like you've Photon is stuck in a different X-Men timeline, so like who knows where she is. Speaking of the multiverse of madness, there's all kinds of weird things happening, but you do wonder. Of all these new heroes they've introduced, Moon Knight, has got his own TV show I talked about earlier.
Yeah, we got to bring the Eternals into the fold somehow. Yeah.
Ironheart is getting a new TV show. There's a Wonder Man TV show coming. Vision is still around, even though he's not the Vision that we knew, or the Vision that we knew after the Vision that we knew. He's just a different Vision entirely. The 3rd or 4th version of Vision.
The Ship of Theseus, as we all know.
The Ship of Theseus, exactly. But like of all these characters, none of them are getting the spotlight. Instead, we're just gonna get Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. back in the headline.
Well, and honestly, to me, that shows that there's definitely a chink in the armor. They're afraid of something. They're worried.
I mean, it's a little short-sighted.
Is it in response to James going to DC and all the attention that he's been getting and all the new projects that he's pumping out? Is that what they're doing? Oh, hey, look over here, Chris Evans is back. Like, I don't understand it. I mean, yes, again, it's nice for Chris Evans. It's nice for RDJ. Make that money, boys. I definitely don't discourage that from anybody. But from a fan standpoint, been there, done that, babe. And like I said, it completely takes away from the 4 actors who are comprising the Fantastic Four, and that's not fair. At the end of the day, we should be talking about them. Yeah. We should be interviewing them. We should be asking what they've got going on. So already we keep talking about being constantly disappointed with Fantastic Four projects. Already they're disappointing us, and we haven't even seen a goddamn trailer yet.
Yeah, and again, the literally what you just said. A lot of them, by the way,
don't be fucking texting and driving, Jake Kelly. Goddamn. Don't be like Dan.
Seriously.
Okay, thank you. Kevin in the chat.
I'm just trying to protect people's safety. That's all.
That's right. Safety first, gang. Safety first.
It's fair.
Don't be. I know it's like easy, like maybe an audiobook. Don't be like having a visual thing plus audio when you're driving. Just PSA from Also Curious. Anyway.
By the way, Kevin Davis saying Marvel Studios have nothing left to prove to nobody. They already hit their peak. Well, here's the thing.
That's fair.
It's fair, but at the same time,
Hollywood
is all about money. What have you.
They also want money.
It's a business. It's you can't just keep you can't keep coasting off your past success because Hollywood is all about
spend money to make money. That's what they do. Yeah.
Hollywood is all about what have you done for me lately, and Marvel has really not done a lot for. I mean, outside of Deadpool and Wolverine. They've had a lot of misses more so than hits. By the way, guys, if you are watching, we see a lot more of you watching than the like button has been, so we need more likes, basically. Hit the like button. It definitely helps us out.
Give us the likes. Give us the likes.
But we have Ron in the chat, and he said, you guys are totally right having RDJ Chris Evans coming back. attention away from the new heroes, which is not a wise move if Marvel wants to push these characters.
It's a shame. It's
It
not
feels
fair to them.
because here's the thing: in the here and the now, like Kevin said in the chat, Doomsday and Secret Wars are gonna make $2 billion each, most likely. But you know what they're also not gonna do? They're probably not gonna end up promoting all these new characters that were introduced as much as they should have, because those characters are gonna get pushed aside for all the more well-known characters from the previous phases, like Star-Lord, like RDJ as Doctor Doom, and maybe even coming back as Iron Man and fighting himself as Doctor Doom, and Chris Evans, Captain America, coming in and totally stepping on, Falcon as the new Captain America.
It would make sense if these actors were completely unknown and they were a little nervous about it, kind of like with Tom Holland. Like, it would make sense if they were just nervous on how people were going to respond to these complete unknowns. But it's Pedro, for Christ's sake. Like, they don't have anybody that we haven't heard of before, we haven't seen in other things.
I mean,
so
we got Pedro
really
Pascal's America's sweetheart.
He's America's daddy. It's not fair, really, because they
all
could get
four of them.
They could get all the publicity. They could still be could still be in the headlines just on those actors alone. So why are they pivoting away from them?
Because it's like, look at that. Like, Pedro Pascal, that dude is in fucking everything. Like, yeah, America's Sweetheart, America's Daddy, America's DILF, whatever you want to say. Vanessa Kirby was in, Golden Globe and Emmy-winning television series for a season or two.
She's in Mission Impossible.
She was in the Mission Impossible franchise. Joseph Quinn
was in hot as shit.
Was in 2 big hits this year.
Right.
And Eben Moss Bachrach was in one of the most fucking didn't it, like, The Bear, like, break records for Emmy nominations or some shit?
Yeah.
How? And then you also have Paul Walter Hauser, who has an unknown role, probably Mole Man, also in it, maybe Herbie, and
I met him. He's a lovely man.
And he's been in a whole bunch of shit, like Cobra Kai and Richard Jewell.
He was nominated for a fucking Oscar, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, so it's like, and the director doesn't have much. It's like he did like WandaVision and shit like that. But like, you have these cast members. I understand they want to like build the suspense, but it's like, it's hard to do that, one, when Marvel has been kind of failing, and two, this is Fantastic Four. We've seen this 4 other times, all of which failed. Can you like give us a little something to like ease us a bit? That's
what I'm saying.
This will be a decent movie, especially when Superman finished filming on the day you guys started filming.
Right. But also, why wouldn't they want to keep this shit as a surprise? Like, don't say a fucking word about it and then have them either pop up in the trailer, or don't say shit and have people find out
because they want
Deadpool
the
and
money.
Wolverine, they were really good about hiding most of the cameos, and it was great and it paid off for them. I just don't understand the decision making on their part.
That in this case, it's Avengers. They got to sell it more. Yeah, No Way Home is another thing, but like, at least with this, or Deadpool and Wolverine,
I agree.
I think it's just like they're so gung-ho on making a bill. Because look, to be fair, yes, Deadpool and Wolverine had the cameos. But at the end of the day, we know what really fucking sold that movie, and that was fucking Hugh Jackman as fucking Wolverine. That's what made that movie over $1 billion. Not fucking, Wesley Snipes and Jennifer fucking Garner coming back as Elektra.
First off, their scenes were great. Their scenes were great.
But don't get me wrong, I love Marvel's daddy. Like, don't get me wrong. That's Wesley Snipes is goated, but like, come on. Jennifer Garner and then Gambit, that apparently everyone hates now, even though everyone was clamoring for Channing Tatum as Gambit for years, but whatever. And
who was? Absolutely not.
Tons of people were, but that's beside
you're
the
all
point.
Dumb. Shame on you.
Anyway, that's not the point I'm trying to make. The Deadpool and Wolverine got sold by the Wolverine part. No Way Home had fucking, Doc Ock and Electro and all these other motherfuckers from the other movies come back. So they're using that part. They're using that part to sell this movie. Oh, well, we got Chris Evans coming back. Well, we got, Tony Stark coming back. Well, not Tony Stark, but like him as RDJ as Dr. Doom. So it's like they're and possibly Scarlett Johansson coming back. So you have all these people coming back, and that's what's selling the movie, much like Hugh Jackman and Alfred Molina and Willem
But
Dafoe and
again, I
Jamie
just
Foxx
feel like
coming back for those movies.
it's Marvel, and it's not Madam Web Marvel. It's Fantastic Four. Like, it is still very highly anticipated. Just like Superman, like we're hoping that they do it right this time. We're hoping that we don't get another disappointing Fantastic Four. So that's what they should be focusing on with this marketing. But for some reason, they just it's a real shame. It really is. But again, to their point in the chat, if the writing is good, which sometimes it is, if it makes sense in the context of the film, again, we might get Chris Evans for all of 30 seconds. We really don't know what he's coming back and what his
They haven't
capacity
really
is
said
in the
exactly
production.
the scale of the role, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
so like the Watcher said, it's as long as the writing is good and it makes sense in the context, that's fine. But again, they're taking away from the other actors in the film, and I think that's the biggest issue that I have right now, for sure.
Exactly. I mean, and look, Kevin pointing out, and rightfully so, that the Multiverse of Madness was almost $1 billion movie. Wakanda Forever made almost $1 billion. Thor: Love and Thunder, despite the fact that it wasn't well received, made I think it was $700 million, which was less than the Thor Ragnarok did, but I mean, it made money. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 made over $800 million. Shang-Chi came out during the pandemic and still made, like $300-400 million. So, yeah, I mean, and to the Watcher's point, Marvel will pretty much do a soft reboot after Secret Wars. We don't know if that means we're gonna get a new Iron Man, a new Captain America. I mean, we have a new Captain America, so I don't know if they're gonna just bring back Steve Rogers or bring back another Tony Stark necessarily. But hey, despite the fact that Marvel has had those box office successes in recent years, the general consensus is that their best work is still behind them in terms of the peak of Phase 3 and Phase 4. So doing member-berry things like bringing back Tony Stark, or not Tony Stark, but bringing back RDJ as Doctor Doom, bringing back Chris Evans as whichever character he plays, it's just to me it would be okay if they hadn't already been like coasting off of that kind of stuff with all the cameos in Multiverse of Madness, all the X-Men stuff in Deadpool and Wolverine, and all the Spider-Man coming together in Spider-Man No Way Home. It just seems like the multiverse has been an opportunity for them to be like nostalgia. Let's bring back all, and I get it. Marvel is bringing all these different characters from the different studios under one umbrella and all the different variations and saying, okay, the Wesley Snipes Blade is now canon to the MCU lore through the multiverse. I get all of that stuff, but at the same time, like you said, like the core issue here is we need to put the focus on some of the new characters so that we're not relying so heavily on RDJ and Chris Evans. They're back now, and they might stick around for a few movies, but like you can't rely on them for another 10 years. Like they're not going to be the ones to build the MCU for the next decade, right? So
you still have other characters that are still, there that are from the old regime, so you can have a mix of old and new. Like you still have Thor. Yeah, Thor: Love and Thunder was like a crime against humanity, but at least he's there. He's still canon. He's not dead yet. So you have that. And then on top of the fact, you have all these other, you still have Hulk. Yeah, he sucks, but he's still there. Hawkeye is like kind of on the cusp of retirement, but like kind of not. But you still have some of those characters. You still have some of them. So like, why not just mix it up a little bit? Okay, cool. We have Chris Hemsworth, but we also have Anthony Mackie. Hey, we have Mark Ruffalo, but we also have Monica Rambeau,
CGI son, and She-Hulk.
there's like a give and take. Like have both and give them equal footing, and then finally move on to fully to the new characters once they get their spot in the sun. And they're finally doing that for Captain America 4, which is unfortunate because there was, it's been a disaster from day one, but which I feel bad for because again, I like Anthony Mackie.
Hopefully the movie
to be good, but
it's still good. But yeah.
So have the mix. This is what I feel like Disney does not understand the mix. They did this with Star Wars and fucked them over, and they're doing it with Marvel. Just don't focus solely on the new. Don't focus solely on the old. Have some sort of mix of the characters you have left, or else you're going to fuck yourself over. So why, Disney? You're a giant. Why are you making the dumbest fucking decisions imaginable? It just doesn't make sense to me. I know it's money, but it's like, I feel like you could still make your money at, like, you still have these insane fans that will sacrifice their firstborn child for you. Like, fucking feed into that network. Like, like there is the money aspect. I understand the money. That's where it talks. But like, I feel like you can make still shit tons of money without doing all of this shit. I don't know. Maybe
I get that. I mean, look, the Russo brothers came to Kevin Feige and said, look, you guys are retooling your plan for these Avengers movies. Here's an idea that we have. And obviously it involves bringing back some of these characters that they directed in all those Avengers movies that made like a Marvel and Disney like $4 billion between Infinity War and Endgame. And so they're going back to the well, and I understand that. I think we all agree on the idea that they should try to use these characters to now set up the future of the MCU rather than bringing them back and being like, okay, we're going to rely on them one more time or 5 more times. Like, it's okay to bring them back and have them set up the future of the MCU, but let's just hope that we don't get to now all of a sudden have Doctor Doom be around with RDJ playing the character for 5 movies or something like that. That's not what we want to do here. And by the way, just really quickly to all of those, in the chat now talking about the Batman news, we did spend like a good, it feels like an hour talking about the Batman 2 getting delayed, and the Brave and the Bold, Andy Muschietti potentially moving on to direct another movie before that. So to Yash, to Ron, to anybody who's stopping by a little bit late, you can be kind of rewind because we talked about that at length and all the nuances of it. But talking about the Avengers Doomsday situation, this article in Collider definitely pointed out, I think, some really good points about what they're doing now feels a little short-sighted, and while it will probably make them billions of dollars, what you don't want to have happen is that, it creates a mess for the MCU that now they have to kind of figure out for the next 10 years of the MCU. So they just have to, it's sort of like in professional wrestling. You go out on the mat, an old wrestler usually loses to a young wrestler on his last match, so that way the new young person now goes over as the new popular hot thing for the next 10 years. I feel like that's what needs to happen here, and hopefully that's what RDJ playing Doctor Doom is meant to do, is meant to sort of help one of the newer characters take off, like maybe the Fantastic Four. Obviously that would make a lot of sense. And then Chris Evans coming back hopefully helps to elevate Anthony Mackie's Captain America rather than push him down the ladder a little bit. So we do hope that that's the direction they're going in. But of course, as always, guys, if you have some more to add to that conversation, drop down in the comments down below. Let us know, and we'd love to hear from you. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you know when we go live. We are here 5 days a week talking about DC and all things from the world of movies. And of course, hit that notification bell while you're at it. We have one more thing to do before we finish the show today. A really long show, as it always is, but today is particularly long. Holy cow. By the way, Justice for Batman. Let's talk about Wallace and Gromit.
You fuck. Just kidding.
So we usually end the show by talking about the movie that, that's set to come out next year. So today, I want to talk about Wallace and Gromit, because Wallace and Gromit, I actually, it's Christmas week, so I popped on the last Wallace and Gromit movie that came out and, enjoyed that for a bit. Now, the whole reason why I did that was because I heard there was a new one coming out. So Vengeance Most Fowl is set to come out in a couple of days' time from when we are recording this. And it could potentially be not just the newest Wallace and Gromit movie, but maybe the last one, because the creators of the franchise, for reasons that you guys can explain to me better than I can, may not be around to do many more movies in the world of Wallace and Gromit. So I wanted to kind of quickly look ahead to this, and then of course we're going to review it next week. I'll start with you, Liz. Are you excited for Vengeance Most Fowl?
Yeah. I'm excited for anything Wallace and Gromit, 100%.
Yeah.
These movies are beloved, and rightfully so. They're just delightful, and they're so creative, and I love these characters, and I hope it's not the last film. I mean, all good things do come to an end, but if they've got some more stories in them, I'd love to see it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and this movie, by the way, it's on Netflix in the US. I believe it's got a limited theatrical release, and it's actually already out in the UK. So you can already see this if you're living in other parts of the world, certainly in the UK, because it's a British franchise. So they give it an early release there, and so for those of us in the US, it's going to take us a few more days to get it on Netflix. John, are you a big fan of Wallace and Gromit? Are you looking forward to it?
I don't know if I would say it's just like, in regards to Aardman and like claymation, I have such and stop motion, like that side, I have such an unbelievable and immense respect for it. as people who still do this very old style of animation and not cutting the corners. Like, as much as I love, like, like, that's what I kind of respected about like old age YouTube of like Lego animations. I was like super into that. And
Oh yeah,
they would be these guys with
claymation.
like
Yeah.
no budget, no nothing. It was just them, their Lego sets and a camera, and they would create some of the most unbelievable stuff. And now I don't want to discount the people that animate that stuff with the Lego style, but I just like it's much more like appealing to me, like having someone actually move the pieces and like taking a picture, move the piece. It's just like I respect it majorly, and this is no exception. I remember when I would watch Curse of the Were Rabbit so much when I was a kid. I think it was just on TV a lot, so I would end up watching it. Chicken Run gave me nightmares. That like when they were going through the fucking like pie machine, that fucked me up.
Yeah.
So but it's funny, I did rewatch Chicken Run like much later. I'm like, this fucking scared me. What the fuck? But again, I've seen like the most horrific shit imaginable. Again, I'm a horror head now, so people grow. I evolved. It's fine. But I'm glad the whole thing with Aardman was debunked and all that, and I can't wait for this. I mean, I wish it was on the big screen because I think it's deserving of that. But I'll take what we can get. Netflix, like once every like 30 movies, they make a good one, and I feel like this one will be that. So I can't wait for it. And this looks so funny, and it brings back one of the most fan favorite hateable characters. So it's great.
Yeah, I mean, Liz, is this a movie that you're just gonna like pop on Netflix as soon as it comes out? Or is this something?
Nope.
What are you most looking forward to in this movie?
I mean, like for me, The Wrong Trousers is the best one. That's my favorite. That's the one I remember most from childhood. We have a Wallace and Gromit alarm clock in our house. Like they are a part of my family. So I'm excited for a new project. It's one of those like they're so few and far between that you kind of forget about it. And then when something like this comes up, you're like, oh shit, Wallace and Gromit, where have they been? Like it makes you feel like a kid again. Like you just can't help but get excited and to look forward to their latest round of adventures. So I think it's gonna be really nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for it. Again, like you said, I was like, wait, there's another like Wallace and Gromit movie coming out. Like what? Like so. Yeah. I'm so glad that we're getting it, and hopefully it's not the last. But it certainly looks like so far the quality of these movies is not getting any certainly not getting any worse. But if anything, it's only improving because it's so far and few in between now that we get movies that are claymation but feature length claymation. It's a lot of work. No wonder they go missing for like 4 or 5 years because it takes that long, I bet you, to make a movie that is a feature length movie.
Yeah, they make an entire movie for how long it takes for Matt Reeves to write a script.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I'm sorry. That was too easy of a joke. I'm sorry. I don't hate Matt Reeves or anything like that. I understand writer's block. Trust me.
You're making it worse, John. You're making it worse.
Block. But because I don't want to
justice
be like,
for Batman. Just saying.
But I'm just saying I don't want to be like the assholes on Twitter that are sending him fucking death threats and
that's a little.
I'm not like that. I don't want to be like that. I'm a little frustrated, but I'm a little frustrated, but that's it. Like, and I'll make a few jokes along the way.
Yeah,
but, like I still have respect for the man.
Like, reevaluate your life decisions if you're going there. Like, come on.
Yeah. So, but that was then. We're done talking about that. Sorry, but I will say I'm excited for this. This looks so fun. I haven't seen every like short film that Wallace and Gromit did. I think I saw a couple. I've seen I remember seeing Shaun the Sheep as well. I'm pretty sure that's Aardman. But yeah, this just looks like a ton of fun and I can't wait to see it. And it's gonna be on Netflix. So as much as I would love to see it in a cinema, it's kind of nice that I can lounge in my pajamas.
Cozy up on the couch with a cup of tea and a biscuit.
I prefer hot cocoa, but tea if you like it.
Totally fine too. So and they elicit these warm, cozy feelings from you. So it's really perfect for winter time and for like a post-holiday kind of treat for yourself. I think it's gonna be wonderful. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I am too. And January 3rd is the date in the US. You can find it on Netflix. It's going to be out. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Be Most Foul. I think I added the B in there, but I think the name is Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, which actually I like the Spanish version of the title even more, because it's really it adds a bit more spice to the name. La Venganza se serva con plumas. Does that mean like vengeance is served cold? I don't know. Vengeance is better, so something like that. But whichever version, whether you decide to watch it in Spanish or English, it's gonna be available on Netflix in the U.S. and I believe also Canada on January 3rd, as Ron was saying earlier. So, and if you're in the UK, then you could probably already go see it. I know I know a couple of people who have already gone to see it. Maybe Lenny has already gone to see it. She's not in the chat today, but you know, John has been missing Lenny. She wanted. John
I do. I owe her a
kiss.
Christmas. Kind of like how I feel like at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, I'm late for a date. I'm late for a kiss. You know, I gotta give her a kiss. She wanted one. I'm just saying, she's the one who wanted a blown kiss.
All
I'm
consensual.
just saying that.
All consensual.
All consensual. That's, you know. Hugo Millie isn't in the chat, and I didn't brush my beard today, so apologies for the scrounginess. But yeah, I wish I did cut it so it's not quite as long as it should be. But yeah, very nice.
All good. It's all good. Well, I mean, hey, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna talk about it. It's on Netflix, so you don't have to go to a movie theater if you don't want to. If you're in the UK, I believe it is getting a limited theatrical release, so you could go watch it on a big screen, or if you have a big TV at home, you can check it out there. Of course, if you popped in the chat a little bit late, you're welcome to be kind and rewind, because we talked about, of course, Avengers, Doomsday, Fantastic Four. We spent a ton of time talking about the Batman 2 getting delayed. Now it's set to come out on October 2nd, 2027, moving back a full year from October, I think it was October 1st, 2026, which is the second time they've moved it. And Andy Muschietti also mentioned that Batman the Brave and the Bold, they're still working on it, and it's taking more time than he expected. So he may work on another movie between now and him actually directing the Batman movie. So who knows when that is gonna come out? So I'm sure we'll get into it more in the coming days and weeks as we hear more about it. James Gunn also had some comments regarding the delay, so we discussed that. We also reviewed Nosferatu. We reviewed A Complete Unknown, and of course we also reviewed Baby Girl. And we started off the show talking about the box office. Tim Miller complaining about his, paycheck for the first Deadpool movie, and we have talked about the Pixar series. I think it's Win or Lose, the Inside Out spinoff. So if you guys missed any of that, you can go back and rewind and see that there. John, where can the good people find you online beyond Also Curious?
Well, if you want a longer spoiler review of Nosferatu, I'm going to be doing that tomorrow with friends on the Cool Kids movie reviews, and I won't be impeded by my time by Mr. fucking Oscar over here. So, go watch.
What are you talking about?
Oscar the Grouch. The Grouch.
No, well, I was talking about how, the Oscar is cutting off the speech. Anyway.
Okay. Works both ways.
But go watch that. I haven't been doing any new videos on the Geek Informant. I took a big long holiday break this month, but I will be back next month for all sorts of various video series that I'm currently doing. Shadows of the Unmade, What If, my Doctor Who side project. So yeah, it's all fun. So go check that out.
Yeah, and Liz, you actually had John on your podcast recently, which I heard was doing really well.
I did.
So tell the good people where they can find you.
Try Not to Curse. Basically, any place that you listen to your podcast, you can find us. Just do a search for Try Not to Curse. John has surpassed even my uncle, who is TikTok famous. John is my most popular guest on the podcast so far. But I will say Dan has been on there as well, gang. So definitely check out both of those episodes if you can.
I need to step up my game.
We're halfway through season 2 right now. I just interviewed a friend of mine that I've known since the 2nd grade who wrote 2 really great fantasy books, and he's got a 3rd on the way. So check that out too, because I think based on the folks in this chat, I think you guys would enjoy his stories as well. So there's a lot of variety there, but yeah, you can find Try Not to Curse. It's everybody uses Spotify, but it's available on Apple, Amazon, Audible.
It's available on YouTube.
Exactly. I mean, I personally am really looking forward to checking. I haven't heard the full episode of the John and Liz conversation on Try Not to Curse. I'm really looking forward to seeing, listening more of that, because the first 15-20 minutes were fantastic. It's a longer episode than that, of course. So check out Try Not to Curse, check out the Geek Informant, the Cool Kids movie review, and of course, you can come back right here, same time, same YouTube channel. It's gonna be on Oh So Curious DCU Daily. Today we did the whole shebang, and you could tell we've been live for like freaking 3 hours. But you know, we'll be back on Monday with another episode of DCU Daily. There's so much to talk about. I'm sure there'll be more news from James Gunn, from the Batman, all the fallout from the delays, as John just told you to do. While you're at it, hit that like button.
Come on, 27 motherfuckers are watching this, and 14 likes. Come on, get on that.
Step up your game, guys. Okay, but also hit the notification bell. That way you know when we go live. But it's been another fantastic episode of Also Curious, guys. We are so glad that you're here. DCU Daily, MCU Weekly, Movies of the Week. The holiday season continues. We'll be back with the Wallace and Gromit review next week. And I'm sure in the new year we've got lots more movies to talk about. Of course, there's going to be so much. Superman, Fantastic Four, and beyond. We'll see you next time. Another episode of Also Curious on DCU Daily. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Liz and John. We'll see you on Monday.